today, in terms of painting a picture around the context for today, today, because Predictive Index, you've all been exposed to it. You've all seen me do the magic of moving people around rooms and reading results and looking at these dots on a page and talking to your members about it. I want to make sure that I can sort of pass the baton to all of you in terms of being able to confidently talk about people's results with your members. So really increase your skill and knowledge around the tool, so that you can then have conversations really effectively around it. So today is what we call baseline foundational knowledge. We typically run this actually as a 2-day program. But because I have so much faith in all of you, we're going to run it in 3 hours. So we're going to do like an accelerated version, all of the extra content that we normally cover in the session. I'm going to actually change and deliver to you over a period of months in these shorter versions, like 1 hour or 90-minute sessions. And I'm going to take the traditional content, like let's say recruiting with PI, and we teach managers how to use it in recruitment. I'm going to change the content so it's relevant for you as a Vistage chair, which is how would you profile a role if you're sitting with a member, right? So I'm going to really change the context so that it's helpful for you in how you might use it. We're going to look at how you would use PI when you're recruiting a new member. When in the process would that be helpful? How would you use it to build trust with a new member? How could you use it when you're coaching? So I'm going to take that content and just change it so it's more relevant and applicable to you, so you can use it in your interactions as you see fit. This is really just something in your toolkit that you can pick out from time to time. I'm not going to like, oh, you've got to go and profile everyone in your group tomorrow. Absolutely not. You can run your own race with this and use it as you see fit. But I can talk to you all separately about how you'd like to use it moving forward long term. So yeah, today is all about knowledge. So you're going to very much feel like you're in a classroom, because we're going to be really trying to transfer some knowledge into your brains today. All right, so in this toolkit, I want you to open it for me. I'm going to walk you through what's in here and when you might need to use what pieces of the puzzle. So the first thing in your toolkit, oh my goodness, is this one. It's got the very cool wolf on the front. And what this is, now we're actually not going to use her today. We are going to use this in future sessions. This is a toolkit that I developed last year. And for some of you, your groups, I would have plotted all of your members in a wheel. Really cool exercise. This asset actually hasn't been released yet. So fun fact, all of you are seeing something that I haven't even released to my clients yet. But it's been sitting in boxes because I, typical Maverick style, built something and then didn't know what to do with it yet. So I am planning to actually build an entire program around this tool. And we've sort of been using it periodically. This is incredibly powerful. This is like layers and layers and layers. After you plot your members or you plot individuals, you can start to see how you would delegate, how you would reward, how would you communicate. It's built on about 10 years of different assets that I've had access to thanks to PI, but also stuff that we've developed around the science. So this is a bit of a beast, and you'll probably flick through it and go, oh, this is really interesting. It is super interesting. I will do another session on this and how to use it effectively. But if any of you've got really high levels of curiosity, like, oh, I want to plot my members, we can just have a call and I can show you how to do it, right? So hopefully you'll enjoy. And this is actually a whiteboard marker. So it's designed that I put whiteboard markers in your pack. You can plot people and then rub it off, but you can flick over and over and sort of see it. So anyway, I love this asset. So if you've got ideas on what I should do with her, open to your feedback, everyone. Now, the next one is our PI companion. Now, this is directly from PI. This is sort of the primary knowledge toolkit, and it's got heaps of information in it. You can flick through that. I will refer to it a couple of times today. It's got 1 page on every reference profile. My job today, though, is to teach you far better than just looking at reference profiles like, oh, you're a maverick or you're a strategist. We would say that's very much generalizing someone. It's helpful when we roll it out to lots of people, hundreds of people, and creates a common language. But the knowledge I want to give to you today is where we don't actually need to use reference profiles. So we're going to refer to this from time to time. What me and my team did is we took, because PI always loves releasing these toolkits. My view is managers would never carry this around because it actually used to be even bigger than this. So we developed these cheat sheets. Now, these cheat sheets you've seen me use every time I've seen every group. I bring these with me and they're in the packs. That is a summary of what's in that book. And then this one is also a summary. This is to do with factor combinations. This is the big A3 one. Again, whiteboard marker. So we've worked with a printing company so that people can actually mark this up and then rub it off, which I also love. And again, this is a summary. So we're going to use all of these two primarily today. Any questions so far? I'm hoping everyone's got all their bits and pieces. If not, just flag it out. Here to help you. All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk about the science behind workplace behaviors. So that's really what we're doing here with Predictive Index, is we're looking at workplace behaviors. This is not a personality assessment. This is not an emotional intelligence assessment. This is not a values assessment. If you need a values assessment, you would speak to Tony Watt. So it's really important that we, in this world of psychometrics, we sort of are really clear about what it is and also what it isn't. So we don't want to give this false sense of, oh, it does everything. Well, no, it doesn't. We are predicting how someone is likely to show up at work from a behavioral perspective. So I always love to put it in this framework for people that when we look at the whole person, particularly as we're recruiting or we're selecting people, we do want to look at the whole person. We do want to look at their skills, knowledge, education, their briefcase. We want to talk to and investigate their heart, and that is things around their values, their ethics, their morals. And then when we start to move up to the head, this is where we're looking at a little bit more hard wiring. And we're going to talk about hardwiring of workplace drivers today, and also their cognitive ability, which we're going to touch on very briefly today. So again, it's not looking at skills. Often people call me and go, oh, Alicia, we're looking for whether you can assess the skills of this person working in a call center and their ability to answer the phone. I can't do that. I can't do it with PI anyway. We would look at other things for that, more skills-based assessments. Now, in terms of Predictive Index, I usually don't ever speak about the tool and the history and the thing when I'm at Vistage. So I just wanted to give you this insight, just to talk to the validity of it. You would know it's very quick and easy to do, hence why we can get your members to do it before a session. We always say it takes about 5 to 6 minutes to complete. It's only 2 questions, right? So you can't pass or fail, which also means they're very hard to manipulate. So if people often say, oh, can someone manipulate this? And I go, no, like it would, what are you trying to manipulate is what I often say to people. What are you trying to do with it? Because there's no sliding scales. There's no forced choice. So very hard to manipulate because of the type of assessment it is. It's referred to as stimulus response. So you're presented with 86 words on a page and you're just left to answer, like which words do I want to select? So it's gone through a lot of validity studies independently and in-house to show that its accuracy and stability over a long period of time. Because PI's had so many millions of people take it, they can use that amount of data when they're looking at the validity of the tool. The other great thing, just a bit of more an FYI, it is available in 70 languages. So if you have bilingual members, they have bilingual staff, which is so common now. Like when we actually look at implementing PI, the ability for me to need a multilingual tool is very high. We live in an incredibly multicultural country. English is not necessarily people's first or primary language. So having a tool where they can take it in Hindi or they can take it in whatever language they need to take it in. I love that we've got so many options there. And the cool thing is we can actually send the report back to them in their language. So we can send it back in about 30 languages. So that's a little bit of a limitation there. But fantastic for people to feel that connectivity to a tool because they're not forced to take it in English. And it's obviously a very mature tool because it was developed back in the 50s. I've got heaps of information about PI in terms of science papers and history papers. I've got, if any of you are so curious, but hopefully that's just a good, nice overview for you. So let's get into the crux of it. You've all seen me talk about this, but really what we're looking at is workplace drivers. So when we think about how do we predict it, how do we predict how someone's going to show up, we're really looking at people's drivers. And if we've all got the primary drive of the drive to survive, because of this drive, our body tells us we need things like we need food and water. That's just a natural need that comes off this drive. And because I need food and water, I'm going to take action. Like I'm going to respond to the need. And behavior is a response to a need. So really the science is around that if we're looking at people's drives and we're measuring drives, which is what the tool is doing. The tool is measuring through these scientific responses. It can measure your drive and therefore says you will have these needs based on the drivers and therefore you're likely to act this way. And I always say that to people, it's just predicting how you're likely to show up. You might have a different response to that need, but I can certainly predict your needs that are coming off this drive. So the tool is, and I always say to people, you're often guessing when you're watching people and observing people and you're looking at a bunch of people and going, oh, they're all here for the same reason. My example here I was going to give you is you've got a group of people who turn up every Thursday, 9 a.m. They're sitting down having a cup of coffee. Could be a mother's group, could be a group of retirees that are all coming Thursday, 9 a.m. Same time, same place. My question for all of you is, why are they all there? Why do you think they're there? Alan?
Yeah, well, to have a coffee and a chat.
Coffee and a chat. Maybe to connect over that coffee and a chat. Yep. Mm-hmm. Why else might they be there? What else might have driven some of them there?
Tapping into something that somebody else knows or does, or something they want to discover from the others.
Yeah, like learning, or like I want to hear something. Yeah, absolutely. Keith, what about you? You looked like you were going to say something.
Oh, I could always say something, Alicia. I think every one of them might have a different driver. So someone's getting out of the house, someone's walking the dog on the way to the cafe. Somebody wants to share something, particularly with some trusted confidants. Some people just want to chat and have a different sort of conversation.
Yeah, you're spot on. And that's often when I use this example, when we do classroom, everyone's like, oh, they're all there for social connection. And I go, absolutely not. Like there are people there that don't necessarily need the social connection. My sister's a prime example. She's definitely doesn't need it, but she would go to her mother's group because it was a part of her routine. And like, okay, that's just the thing I do. And I know I have to do it and I'm going to go and it's part of my routine. It gives me something to do. So exactly right, Keith. People are there for different reasons. We can't observe people's behavior and assume. And this is the big thing in this psychometric space is we can't just go around and profile people. And I meet lots of managers and they're like, I'm very good at reading people. And I go, love that. You will have a perception and your perception is often based off your own experiences as well. So really what we want to do is obviously we want to tap into that, your knowledge or experience of dealing with people. But this brings us more scientific element, a more evidence-based element to how we interact with people. So let's jump into, now we know we've got the 4 drives of PI and I don't want to bore you with, we'll go because we're going to go through one by one of each of these drives. But we start to look at these drivers as sliding scales. And we're really going to dig into this today to go, well, okay, we've got these 4 drivers that have been proven to impact people at work and we all have these 4 drivers. the question starts to become, well, where do we all sit on these drivers? How intense are these drivers? Or maybe we don't have much of this drive at all, and therefore what might my needs be? How might that impact me when I'm showing up at work? The layer we're getting into today that you will not have seen is how do these drivers impact each other? And this is kind of the secret sauce of PI, is not just each one singularly, but if I have a high dominance drive, how is that going to connect with my low patience drive? Because we can actually combine those two things together and we can unlock more insight about someone. So we're going to get to that today, which is hopefully going to be really insightful for all of you. And I have all of your PI results up here. So instead of you playing with your members' data, you have your data for a change, which you don't normally get to spend a lot of time looking at. So the way it works when we look at those questions that you get when you're faced with doing your PI, which is how do I perceive I need to be at work by others? And then you get 86 words. You'll start to select certain words. You'll look at a word like competitive that I've put up here, competitive. And some of you will go, yes, I'm going to tick that word. That is me, or that is how I perceive I need to be. And it's going to respond on some of those drivers. It's going to pull a drive up. It's going to pull another drive down. And you're going to go through every word, and it is sort of measuring what you're selecting and also what you're not selecting. So there's a lot of complexity underneath the tool. I've spent time with my team even recently because I'm onboarding a new staff member, and the curiosity kicked in of like, could we try and create a profile? So we picked a profile. I'm like, can you select words and try and create this profile pattern? So I would call that trying to manipulate it, right? Now, even with all my knowledge of doing this for 15 years, I struggled to manipulate it and actually get an accurate result of trying to replicate a specialist pattern, which I know in depth. Like I still didn't select exactly the right words to build it out, right? Because it is selecting what you are and aren't selecting and the connection to those. So it builds up a bit of a thing in the background. It looks at an algorithm and the weighting of certain words, and then it turns your results or anyone's results into a graph like this. So we start to be able to measure these drivers and plot them on these graphs. Now, if we were to actually have a look at this graph in a little bit more detail than we normally do, we have 3 graphs. So when you do your PI and you got your results, you will have 3 graphs. You'll always have a self graph, and the self is that response to how I perceive myself, like who I am. And I always say that's who I'm managing, that's who I'm coaching. And then you've got a self concept, and the self concept graph is really interesting for all of you. And I would encourage you to dig into this when you get access and you start looking at your members' data, because self-concept is how they perceive they need to be. I am going to do a whole thing on this as we get towards the end of the session, because there's such a great opportunity to be coaching someone through if they have a significant change of self and self-concept. Often there can be a really high buildup of tension. If, you know, here's who I am and here is how I perceive I need to be, and it's very different, it's something that creates a really great opportunity for that conversation. And I often cannot have those conversations because of the time I'm spending with your group. And I often say to groups, self-concept, I can't talk to you about self-concept today. Too many of you in the room, come and see me in the break. But really now this is a bit of a window for all of you to think about, oh, how could I use this in my coaching conversations with them? Now, if we think about these graphs, get to our mathematical days for any of you who liked doing maths and all things graphs back at school. My dad had a PhD in maths as a bit of a backstory for me. So I spent a lot of time using plot paper as a child. So I love all this stuff in terms of looking at the spectrums of a graph. But PI is built on standard deviation. So looking at a bell curve, if you want to look at it that way, knowing that a very rare amount of people would sit on the far end of this bell curve. And again, this is based on all of the years of data that PI has collected and looking at how rare a result would be or how intense a particular drive would be. So you can see here that we have a midpoint. So when you look at any graph, you're always going to have a midpoint. And that's just an average expression of that drive right in the middle. As we go to the right, we would refer to that as you've got a higher amount of that drive. There's more of it. It's more turned on. It's more intense. And then we've got a lower amount of that drive. Now, in terms of statistically, to nerd it out with you for a second, 68% of people will have a factor or all of their factors within the moderately low to moderately high, right? In terms of that bell curve, you can see it's top of the bell curve. Majority of people are going to sit there with their results. Then we go out to the very low and very high, and we would say 95% of people, you know, from 70 to 95% are going to have their whole graph in these within that vicinity. And that really means what we're left with is a really small percentage of people that would have an extremely high or an extremely low drive. Now, 99% or 99.7% of people have their results in the graph, which leaves us with 0.3% of people who actually have a factor that sits outside of this graph. And you will see that be displayed. It is very rare, so you may not see one, but you also may see one. It will have the letter like the A, B, C, or D, and then it will have an arrow trying to get off the graph. So they do exist. I have seen them many times at Vistage. It often sits on that dominance drive when I see it at Vistage. And sometimes it sits on the formality drive in the extremely low is where I've seen it more than the others. But as we start to look at the intensity of someone's graph, and we're going to look at people's results, how wide is their pattern? Because that's really going to almost dial up the intensity of those behaviors. Or think about those drives, like the drive to survive. Imagine that person is starving in terms of how hungry they are. It's the same with these drives. It's going to be really intensely turned on or turned off, depending on where their results sit. In terms of the graph themselves, and this is just a very small detail for you, we refer to each of these blocks as a sigma. So when we might be looking at a graph like this, and I tell you this because sometimes I do most of my interacting with a lot of you over the phone, right? And same with my team, and they'll go, "Oh, Alicia, I'm looking at a result. It's a 4 sigma wide pattern." What? That's like really wide. Or it's a 6 sigma wide graph. So if I start to, anyway, that's a bit of a thing as we get down the track, but we can start to see how wide this person's pattern is. So this pattern is probably like a 2 sigma wide, maybe in the 3 sigma wide, it's starting to tip into like a 3rd sigma. So that's just sort of looking at how broadly spread the result is. You sometimes will get factors that sit smack bang on the midpoint. I actually think some of you here have a factor right on the midpoint. That just means you're going to be quite situational with that drive. You're sort of going to flex it up and flex it down depending on what's in front of you. And then sometimes we get graphs or people's results that look like this, where all of their factors are sitting right down the middle or on that middle graph. How do you think someone like this might show up if all of their factors are right in the middle? If you had a member who looks like this, how are they going to go in your group? How are they going to show up? Could you predict it? What would it look like, do you think?
I mean, I've got one in my group and very, hard to predict. You know, they sort of go with the flow depending on the energy and how the day is going. They don't sort of stand out as a particular character, I would say.
Yeah, great insight, because that go with the flow is probably a really good assessment of this style pattern. they just sort of merge in well with any group. So I'd always say they're well liked by everyone. They sort of mirror quite well, you know, they're not extreme. They're never these like big personalities. No. Yeah. And they definitely have their own results and their own patterns. Absolutely. But because they're so moderate, they're very situational. So they can flex themselves really comfortably. So it'll be, again, this will become really interesting as you start to go back and have a look at your members and be like, oh, what do I have here? All right. So I want to just play a really quick lightning round. If you want to go off mute, you can. I want us to have a look at, if we think about high and low drivers, what would this person's highest drive be? Which drive is the highest?
Formality.
Yeah, formality, that D drive. And what drive for them is the lowest?
Sociability.
Try again.
Extraversion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that dominance, that A is the lowest because it's the furthest to the left.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got the lowest amount of that dominance drive and they've got the highest amount of that D, formality. Now, what about this person? What would be their highest drive?
Dominance.
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 And what's super interesting about this person is they only have one drive on that high side. So it's going to be, we would sort of refer to that as like their primary, like that is driving their whole profile. Everything else is on that lower side. How low is everything else? Is it moderately low, very low, or extremely low?
Moderate.
Yeah, moderately low, because that sort of next bracket there is what we refer to as that moderately low. If the D had shifted a little bit further, we'd say, oh, it's very low in that formality. So even that, which block does it sit in is really important. How high is that dominance drive?
Extreme.
Extreme. Yes,
Extreme.
Penelope, it's
3
extreme.
sigma.
3 sigma, yes. Look
I
at us
learned
saying
something.
sigmas. Yes. So yeah, this pattern's really interesting. We've got dominance is extremely high and extraversion, patience, and formality are in the moderately low.
That wouldn't be in my group.
Oh, they're everywhere, Keith.
No, they'd self-select themselves out of my group with that level of D, that level of dominance.
They're in all the groups though, Keith. You'll see them.
Whoa.
What about this person's? What is this person's highest drive?
Extraversion.
Extraversion.
Nice, Tony. Extraversion. Look, without doing too much, how do you think this person might show up if their highest drive is extraversion and everything else is low? What are they going to be like in a group?
Disruptive.
They're probably going to be the chatty one. Because that social drive and connecting with others and talking and building rapport, that's their primary and everything else is low. So you're going to see that show up really as that primary component of them. All right. I think you get the gist. Oh, actually one more. What is this person's lowest drive? What do they have the least amount of?
Extraversion.
What is this person's highest drive?
Formality.
Nice. Formality. So, and again, we're going to unpack this, but this person is quite formal, structured. There's a right way to do things. And then they're very reserved. So they probably won't say a lot if they were in a group, but when they speak, they're going to like drop a gold mine on your group. So really interesting pattern here. I always say they won't say a lot, particularly in a group environment, but then when they do say something, everyone goes, wow, that was so profound. Whereas pattern here says a lot. So we've got to sift through the things and find the gems in the conversation. Just to be sort of painting a picture here. So what we're going to jump into is we're going to look at our 4 factors cheat sheet, this cool one for now. We're going to dive into this because this helps us as we go into the next bit where we start comparing them. and we work with all these factors. So you're welcome with your whiteboard marker to plot yourself if you want. You can circle and you can leave a little note on it. But because I'm prepared, I have already put all of your data in here for you. So let's jump into this dominance drive. So the first drive we want to look at is this dominance, this drive to exert our influence on people or events. Now, for those, I will put a big disclosure. If you've done DISC, who here has done DISC? Everyone will have done their DISC. We've all done our DISC. DISC is similar to PI's ABCD, but it isn't the same. So I will just put a caveat, it's not the same thing, but has lots of commonality to it. And if you've done DISC, and I've got trainers of mine who are ex-DISC and are doing PI training, sometimes it's really hard to remove that connection of like DISC and PI. So as I go through these drives, these are drives. They're not comparative to DISC. It's like this is their drive and the explanation of the drive. So not identical to DISC's D. All right, so if we look at this one, this dominance drive, it's the drive to exert your influence. And that's a really good explanation. These people who have this drive to have an impact or influence other people. So the higher we go, you can see there the needs that come off that. If we are up on the high side, we need, like in terms of how do I fuel that? I need independence. I need control over my own activities. Hands on the steering wheel type of individual. They need to be challenged by their work, by people around them. They need the big picture. So they're probably working on the big picture. Lots of autonomy and problem solving. We often say likes more individual recognition, which is really important to understand. And they need opportunities to compete. And sometimes that's with themselves when we look at more dominant people. As we go to the low side, they're going to need different things. Their needs start to shift and change. They need encouragement. They need a more harmonious environment. Definitely much more team orientated. So they'll use language like we. How are we going to get there? Very collaborative in the way they work. Very much how do we get the group to build consensus to get to where we're going. So let's have a look at all of you. Here's where you all are. So Andrew, you're up on our extremely high. You're like right on the midpoint of that.
Stop
Alan,
laughing,
Tim.
Guy.
I'm surprised at
And then we've got, Alan, Tim, and Tony up on our very high. Then we've got Keith in our moderately high with Penny. Glenn, if he was here, is right in the middle here. And then Guy, you're on the moderately low. You've got a very skinny profile, but in the moderately low. And again, I've had 2 other groups of Vistage chairs. It's really diverse, right, in terms of what we have in spread for chairs. So you can start to have a look at, as you can see here, moderate, very extreme. So it's just sort of turning up the dial of these needs. And I love using the analogy of how hungry you are. So like that feeling of like, well, how intense is it? It's just going to become stronger, this drive. And therefore the behaviors that might show up are more consistent because we have that such a strong need. Or it might be more visibly, other people can see it really clearly in you. Other times, not so much because you might have learnt skills to moderate it, right? So it's a little bit interesting for people on the very or extremely high. Again, this is a bit of a side note. If we see these in candidates and I'm interviewing, I really want to understand if you've got extreme drives, your ability to self-regulate, which is emotional intelligence stuff. Because if you've got a drive, imagine being starving hungry all day, and I've got an employee who's walking through the office who hasn't eaten in 5 days and is starving hungry. What happens when people are really hungry? Like if they're like my kids, they get hangry and their behaviors become quite intense because of how hungry they are. And the same goes when you've got extreme drives. The build-up of the need is really high. And so therefore you're either going to respond to that with your behavior or you're going to be regulating that behavior, right? So they're the things that we would be looking at under the surface. We'd also want to make sure that no matter where you sit, that you're in a role that's relatively aligned to where you are. So Andrew, without picking on you, I couldn't put you in a job that was on the low side. That just like isn't going to happen. Sorry. Like if I was like, you have no control, you are always going to sit in the back seat. I need you to ask 5 people's opinion before you do anything. If I briefed you like that, how does that feel?
Well, it like Guy says, I think I've been aware of potentially of that thing, so I think I adapt. I think I'm adaptive. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll flex to meet people where they're at as well. You've
Yeah.
learned that skill. But this is interesting because there's your ability to adapt. And then I say, if I put you in a job that demanded that of you all day, every day, 8 hours a day, that you were never allowed to have the keys to the car,
No.
at some point you're going to find a way to get the keys.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, I need to have a drive. Like, so there, and again, when we start to think about the workplace and like where we see disengagement turn up and we see turnover come up and we see weird behaviors, it's often because we've put people in roles that they're quite misaligned to. And so we're seeing their actual natural state come out, and that natural state is not what we're looking for in the job. There's that misalignment. Because what we want is people just to be themselves. We want people to have their needs met because their role is aligned to that and we're valuing it. We want it. And we're like, great, go out. You know, Alan, Tim, Tony, you know, Andrew, off you go. Here's the goal. Work on the big picture, be strategic. We would want to make sure that we could leverage that so you could just show up as yourself. Any reflections or insights on this one for any of you? Anybody thinking about your members? Anyone thinking about yourself? Any questions percolating in those brains out there?
I have a question, Alicia.
Yes.
And it's reflecting on what that last conversation. So, what is the capacity for people to moderate their drive as they mature?
That's a great question, Keith. Your capacity to moderate your behavior comes down to 3 things. One is your cognitive capacity. So your intellect, if I want to put it that way. So your intellect allows you to read the room, read the situation, picking up the things that people are saying, your ability to comprehend. So 1 is your cognitive. 2 is your emotional intelligence that I can't actually measure in this tool. And the 3rd is your desire or your motivating needs to shift. So if you actually don't have all 3 of those things going on, very hard for you to shift.
Yeah, I suppose my question really was how people will complete this assessment at different stages of their life based upon their journey and their current drivers. I've got no doubt that I'd be higher than Andrew 20, 30 years ago, but I'm not there now for a variety of reasons, I believe. But you're able to dissuade me of that view with your knowledge and experience.
Look, I think you can see, so we would see people's results, particularly over 7 to 10 years, you start to see that shifting of a factor. What you're talking about is almost like a moderation of your profile over time, potentially, yes. I would, though, say that a shifting of your highest drive or your sort of primary pattern, it would be very hard to systemically change you over your lifetime. What you might see is just some inflections of your profile. Like you said, you were probably, you know, very or extreme, and you've brought it down, but it's more unlikely, just from a statistics perspective, that you would become an extremely or very low dominance drive, and you could just totally turn that drive off.
Okay, that's good. I just need to put it into context, you know, with a Maslow hierarchy of needs assessment, or a Wordsworth, or a DISC. I mean, there are Myers-Briggs, all these different models.
Yeah,
they're all similar and different. And I've had many people say to me, well, you can't change who you are. I said, well, that's probably right, but I can change my behaviors. And that's what we're measuring here, isn't it?
Well,
Right.
no, we're not measuring your behaviors.
Sorry,
we're measuring your drivers.
Yeah, you mentioned
Yeah.
drivers which produce behaviours.
Yeah, but you're spot on about, I agree with you there. You can change your behavior. I would always say to people, you're in control of your behaviors. Like, and we would say this to our children too, right? You are in control of your actions. So I can change my behavior if I want, if I'm willing, if I have the cognitive capacity and I have the emotional intelligence to do so, I can change my behavior. What I can't really change is the drive that's sitting there. I can't turn it off. That is sort of what we're looking at here. Like, I am a 3 Sigma high extrovert. I can't turn that off. Like, I can moderate, I can sit and I can listen for long periods of time. I can show up differently. But I can't turn the drive off. It's going to just sit there under the surface.
So can I just ask you one more question or make an observation for your comment? So the way I always look at all of these tools, including this one, is that anyone who's in a C-suite role has probably learned to modify their behavior for the environment they're in so they can get success. So their driver doesn't change, but their behavior does. When you put that person under pressure, when they have a row at home or their parents are going into aged care and they've got all this extra pressure piled on them, they tend to revert back to what their real drivers are. You see different behaviors. And that's most of the people in the workforce, because most people know how to behave at work, but then these external forces or a row with somebody forces them to behave, and you lose the veneer. The veneer of professionalism is stripped away by the environment.
Yeah,
Would you
great
agree to that?
observation. Yeah,
Would you agree?
I would very, very much. And I think everyone on the call was like, Keith. Like, I think we're all nodding with you there, with our own examples that are coming to mind. So, you know, I often refer to it as crisis behaviors and what happens under stress.
Yeah.
And you'll see some of this come out and then amplified, maybe in a different direction. Yeah, good, interesting insight.
Good. Thank you for clarifying.
Alicia, I've got a question. I've probably, in analysing this, more looked at the if you take me, the right hand side is let me drive and the left hand side is collaboration. So both are positive statements, but the way that you presented it is that one is high and one is low. So could because we had in the session you did with us, we had all the people who worked in the business tended to be low dominance. But is that a negative? It could come across to that. They could perceive that it's a negative because it's turned.
And that's why it is important that we always say high and low, but there's no good or bad. It's just you've got a high amount of this drive, you've got a low amount of this drive, you've got a different set of needs. Those needs are still positive. They're just different. It's like saying, you know, so it's just different language. It's not good or bad.
Yeah.
And to your point, it is really positive language, and that is a really great thing about the tool. You can't be like, oh, you're in the bad zone. There is no bad zone. All right. Let's have a look at the extraversion drive. So I'll show you where you all are, and then I might unpack it all. So we've got Tony, you're our highest extraversion drive person in this group, but even that is only moderately high. So this is this drive for social interaction. And when we start to look at this drive, the higher we have this drive, the more we're going to have needs. And you can see there the needs there, you know, we're going to need to interact. We're going to need for social acceptance. We want to talk through our ideas. Is often what I say when we go up on the higher side, the more we need to talk to generate those ideas and get them out of our brain. We do the talking to get them out. As we go on the left side, we still have this drive for social interaction. Yes, we just have a lower amount of it. And we're going to start to see our needs change into an opportunity for reflection. And we need time to reflect on our ideas and maybe to process information that's happening. We want to think and reflect on it. Therefore, we might need more privacy and quiet time during our day than others up on that high side. With our group here, we've got a few in the moderately low. We've got a couple right in the middle, very situational. So Penelope and Andrew, you will flex this up and down depending on what's in front of you. So you'll turn it on almost like, yep, I'm going to go out and meet all those people and have that chat and, you know, have 20 cups of coffee and do all those things. And you come back and be like, oh, I just need to sit down and like put my headphones in. And go through my notes and reflect on what I'm going to do. And yeah, so that equal balance is really important. But actually makes you a little bit harder to predict. Often when you're right in the middle, you'll come across more extroverted or more socially orientated than you are because you flex up there very comfortably. I don't know if that resonates, where people might have been like, oh yes, you're both much more gregarious maybe than you naturally are in terms of your needs.
Well,
Penelope,
all
you
I
like
can say on mine,
Yes.
on Myers-Briggs, I'm highly extrovert, and on DISC, I'm an I. So, but actually, I agree with this scenario. I think it's a more appropriate, actually.
Yeah,
But it's
great.
interesting
No,
that
that's
it's
good.
different.
Yeah, on others, I've been an introvert. So yeah, it is interesting.
Well,
But
there you go.
I absolutely do both. But I have my moments where I just need to stop, close the world.
Yeah.
Think. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say headphones in, walk the dog. I don't know, there'll be something like that recharge is really important. And actually I had a member in a group that when I went through this and they were right in the middle and I had a chat with them afterwards, they were like, I am doing way too many meetings because everyone thinks that's what I need. I need the interruption. I need everyone to have a chat with me. And he's like, I really need more time back. Like I need time to plan and think. And anyway, I later found out through the chair that they actually had started deliberately carving time out and that had been really productive for them. And again, this is where often there is that difference between DISC and Myers-Briggs to PI. And it's usually on this one actually, and a few other things, but that's why I always say they're different. I can't just take your DISC and then plot your PI. It's a different assessment. Now, this is a really interesting one, and we're going to talk about it more as we talk about down the track. We look at like profiling jobs because that's becomes really interesting. Well, what does the job need? And people have their own perception of that as we go through job profiling. But hopefully you can see the difference here. It's not just extrovert, introvert. We always say it's more complex than that. It's a sliding scale, you know, of how much social interaction you need. And again, to be fully productive, engaged, satisfied within your role. What do we need to do here? How might you show up? All right, let's have a look at the patience drive. And I'm going to show you where you all are. So it's not how patient you are. It's this drive. So the drive under here is the drive for consistency and stability. Oh, and there's a nice typo on that slide. You can tell I haven't typed. So that drive is the drive for consistency and stability. So have a look on your cheat sheet here. And so the further we go up in this drive where Guy and Glenn are, and again, they're in the moderate, not even in the very or extremely high, which you've probably got some members who are more extreme on this drive. They're going to need that consistency and stability. So we say things like needing long-term, I'll show you here, long-term affiliation, the ability to work at a steady pace, familiar surroundings, familiar environment, freedom from too many changing priorities. Not to say that they can't handle lots of things going on and they can't work at pace, but definitely more that planning. You're going to see them thinking more long term in that, okay, what are the things that need to happen long term? I've got my director of talent has a much higher patience drive than me. She plans our training schedule so far in advance, I can't even look at it because I'm like, it's so far away. Like I can't comprehend that. Whereas she will have everything organized 6 months in advance. She'll know exactly where she is and what plane she's getting on. And because she's got that drive for stability, she still responds really proactively and quickly like I do, but her need for that planning is much higher. She needs that stability. If we look at our low side, we need more variety, we need change, we need pace, we need a little bit more mobility. They need multiple things. They need freedom from their routine. They're probably going to initiate change going on in their environment. I would say they're the change initiators. So if I show you this here, you can start to see, Alan, you're in our very low. And then we've got a bunch of you in moderate. Keith, right in the middle. So you're going to flex that up and down depending on what's going on, that stability. And then, oh no, let's act quickly and change things up. And then, okay, let's create some stability. And then Guy just on that moderately high side. Calm. I would say the higher you go here, the calmer often you can present yourself. Calm in the storm. The building is on fire. We will follow you, Guy, because you will calmly lead us to safety. You're on mute.
I'll calmly lead you somewhere anyway.
Yeah. Not sure where, but we are all going to follow you calmly. I've actually got a couple of friends who are paramedics who, out of my own curiosity, I'm like, why is it that when you watch those ambulance shows, the paramedics are never running? Has anyone noticed that? Why paramedics never run? I'm like, why are they not running? There's like, why are you not all panicked? This person is bleeding to death. And I've profiled, and again, very small sample size. Both of my paramedic friends have high patience drives. And I think that's actually what you need in a crisis. You need someone to follow the process.
Like,
I will save your life. Yes, Keith.
You just realised what you said then?
What?
The people who are paramedics have a high patient drive.
Yes.
That's exactly what you said.
Patience.
So you're talking literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both. Yes.
Keith loves his homonyms.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's really interesting when you think about their ability to stay calm and composed in those crisis environments. And I go, well, I'm glad I probably didn't become a paramedic, because I probably would have been running around that ambulance. Like, why is everyone not moving fast enough? Whereas they're the ones
Can I share a funny story with you?
Please.
So I've got 3 doctors, medical doctors that I work with, and 2 of them were at our retreat. And one of the members froze, their back froze, and they were in excruciating pain. And all the non-medical people are fluffing around trying to see what they could do. And the emergency physician, who runs emergency departments around the country, calmly sauntered across. Everything was done at about 1% pace of everyone who was not medically trained. It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I do find that stuff very interesting too, when you look at their response in that pressure environment. And it's, obviously very much their training as well, isn't it? So
Yep.
All right, so this is that patience drive. So looking at that need for consistency and stability. Let's have a look at the formality drive, this drive to conform to rules and structure. Now, rules and structure are really, really important when we think about this. The higher we go, it's more structure, more frameworks, more give me that knowledge, give me the rules, give me the checklist. I need to make sure things are done to a very high standard. And the lower we go, the more I do not want to adhere to such structure. I need my freedom. I need my flexibility. I want to be able to move quite spontaneously around my environment. Definitely that more freedom and flexibility. Here are your results for this group. I know many of you will be curious to go back and have a look at your own members here. We would say for this group, we're a little bit more on that lower side, freedom, flexibility. Alan, you're in our moderately high side. So needing a little bit more rules and structure than potentially the group. Lots of you right in the middle, flexing that up and down. And then a bunch of you on our lower side needing that freedom, flexibility, freedom to make exceptions, ability to deal quite spontaneously. So Tony, I can be like, Tony, can you, I could be in Brisbane. I could be like, Tony, I desperately need you to come to this meeting with me. I need your help. Can you just please come to this meeting? And you'll be like, great, rock and roll. You'll turn up and you'll be like, I don't need too much of a briefing. I will turn up, I will wing it, so to speak. Your comfort level in being spontaneous and dealing with what's in front of you without that preparation would be much higher than maybe others because of your ability to deal quite flexibly. Is that an accurate read, Tony?
It is.
Yeah, so this is where we start to look at, particularly again, how they're going to, what are their needs, how might they show up, and also when we think about people's roles, what do their roles look like? What do they need to do in terms of their role? And this drive is so interesting. And again, I always hear it in people's language of like, that employee is not doing things the way we need them to do it. And you're like, tell me more about their job. Like, what is it that they're not doing? And then if we start to unpack it, oh, actually their role is quite compliance orientated, or there's lots of systems they're meant to be updating. And okay, well, the job is probably up on this high side and this person is down here on the low side. So what are the tools and techniques and support networks we can put in place to help them adapt to the role? Or how do we get rid of those things? Or so that, again, it's coming down to this drive for rules and structure. I always give the example of salespeople not entering their deals into a CRM. And it's because the majority of particularly new business salespeople sit on this low side. So don't ask them to fill out 5 pages to do with every contact they've met, because it's just too far away from where they naturally are. You need sales administrators or something else to plug that gap. All right, so in terms of this group, that is your team analytics, just to do a little quick snapshot for you. Lots of variety in the group. Becomes more interesting the more people you put in here, obviously. But let's now dig into it a little bit further, because I know you've all seen these 4 factors before, some of you many times. And I really want to look at it at a deeper level. Now, in your results, if any of you actually have your results handy, because I don't have this factor on my slides for you, because we can't pull it, is when you look at your graphs, you get an E factor on your results. And your E factor often sits with your old results. It'll sit on the very bottom in your synthesis graph. In the new system, it'll sit just underneath the main graph. And you'll see the letter E. And you're like, what is this E? The E factor is looking at how you make decisions. Whether you're more, the higher you go here, the more we're looking at objective data decision making. And the lower you go, the more subjective or instinct-based feelings, emotion when you're making a decision. This will become, again, super interesting as we look at it from a coaching perspective. So interesting. If you're coaching someone, it's almost like I look at someone's pattern and I look at their E. I'm always looking at that combined, because there's that core part of someone's drivers, and then, okay, now how are they making decisions? And the reality is, for most Vistage members, whether they're CEOs or executives, so much of their role is about making decisions every day. And then we start to look at how they make decisions when they're stressed and under crisis. We're going to see this E factor show up a lot. You might see members who are almost paralyzed and unable to make a decision. You might see members who are in a state of flux and they're sort of thrashing around in their role, creating a little bit of chaos around them, sort of not consistent in their behavior and their decision making. And they might be sitting more on this subjective side, right? They're really being influenced by their emotion. And if they're very stressed, it might be really dramatically impacting how they're showing up. So looking at this E factor is going to, hopefully your curiosity kicks in as you start to talk to your members, and, you know, you might have a member navigating some real stress and crisis, and you can have a look here and go, okay, well, how are they now making decisions? Are they really flexed into their logic part of their, you know, if that's their result? And actually they're not moving forward because they don't have enough data. All right, how do we help them with that? Or are they really running on their emotions all the time? Again, on a case-by-case basis, this becomes a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm a 2 sigma on the E.
On the high side or on the low side?
High side, yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Got 0 emotion.
Well, you have lots of emotion, Guy. It's when you're making decisions, you're very logical.
But I can cry while watching those silly things on TV and be highly effective.
Anybody else want to, if they've looked up their E? Yes, Keith.
Question, if I may.
Yeah.
Does it necessarily follow that a data-driven decision maker, by definition, is going to be slower than an instinctive gut feel decision maker?
Ooh.
Is that likely, but it necessarily doesn't have to necessarily be so?
Look, I would say there's not a direct connection in terms of
Yeah.
their pace of making decisions.
Yeah.
And only because I can say, based on just working with so many people, I've debriefed so many people, particularly with a high E, who can make a lot of decisions quickly because their logic in their decision making is almost their years of experience and knowledge. And I sat with the CFO once, and anyway, he was very logical. But we're talking about sort of his pace and working in this startup. He goes, I can work very quickly because I've done this for 35 years. So my evidence isn't necessarily the P&L, it's the evidence of every other business I've ever worked in.
Yeah.
So that allowed him to work quite quickly. But in some cases, to your point, it can slow them down because they're like, you haven't given me the business case for this.
Yeah. I know of people that are driven by data and are necessarily slow to act, and they wouldn't be suited for some of the other businesses which are always minimal viable product. Let's get thing out there. Let's do things and let's keep tweaking as we go.
Yeah.
They're diametrically opposed to each other.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue on. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a 5-minute break because there is nothing worse than sitting on a Zoom call for just hours on end. So I'm going to give you till 10:15. And now actually that's different for my Adelaideans because it's
That's
10
all right.
o'clock
I
here.
understood you. I understood you.
I'm going to give everyone 5 minutes. You can bathroom, coffee, do what you need, come back in 5 minutes. All right. See you all soon. Andrew, well, I've got you. We logged a ticket for you. So that's
okay.
gone to PI.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
they'll tell us by tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's good.
And then we can get you in so you can play
Yeah.
around.
No, at least we're I couldn't work out why I couldn't get it working.
Yeah, definitely not user error. It's like you just
Yeah.
haven't been sent the stuff, so it's all good. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes that happens. It just, can't be explained. All right.
I think there's a bit that, I mean, just looking at my things, it's interesting looking at the other tools and comparing them.
Mm,
Might have to come and see and talk to you about that.
yeah. All right.
The group felt like this absolutely matched what they felt, their self-impression, which I think is good.
Well, seeing as they completed the results, you'd be upset if it didn't, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's not like a 360.
No.
Alicia, can I just ask a question? I'm in my dashboard and I found there's only 2 of the group in there. Is that right?
I don't know exactly where we're up to in moving your stuff over, but I can find out for you. I know it is in progress when you sent us that list.
Yeah.
But it could be, now I'm having slight memory, that the list you had, only 2 of the members are still in the group, whereas the rest are new and I haven't seen them since 2024.
Yeah, okay. I've noticed that mine's not in there either.
I think because we moved Kate's folder, all those members across, and you were not in it.
Yeah, okay.
So I need to look at let me leave it with me.
Mine will be in Keith's group.
Yes, it will. Yeah, because I found it this morning when I was pulling this data. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With your Harrison email.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we're mostly back. So let's kick on, everyone. All right. So we're now leaning into what we refer to as factor combinations. So if those were our 4 factors, we're now looking at those factors combined, which is really the secret sauce to PI. Hard for me because I can never get to this level with your members because it's sort of like a layer underneath, takes too long to explain. But ultimately, this is where we spend most of our actual work when we're consulting or practicing with PI. So I'm hoping you will enjoy this extra insight. So if we think about the 4 factors, what we want to do is connect each of those 4 drivers with another drive. So when we connect A, which is dominance, with extraversion, if we were to connect those 2, we can predict people's orientation. And orientation is just another word for focus. So is it that they're more task focused or is it that they're more people focused? When we connect their A and C, we can predict how they're going to take action. Are they more proactive or more responsive? When we combine dominance or A with D, which is formality, we can start to look at how they view risk. I love risk. Love talking about that one. Then when we do B and C, we're looking at how you take connections and speed for connection. Then B and D, when you look at those 2 combined, depending on which way around, we're looking at how you're going to interact with people. Are you more formal or informal? And then lastly, how you're going to view rules, whether you're more casual or careful. So this is the cheat sheet we are about to embark on, this big beast of a cheat sheet that took us a very long time to work out how we're going to get many pages of information on one thing. But the way I recommend you do this is as we go through is you can leave a little note, you can put a little circle around something, and I'll show you how to complete this. This is the part of training when we do run it that if you're going to get lost, it'll be around this and just trying to plot them. So be kind to yourself, ask lots of questions if you don't understand. This is very hard to facilitate virtually because normally what we would do is like I would come around and like draw it on here for you. So I would do my best to guide you. Now, every pattern or everyone's results has these 6. We all have 6 factor combinations. We just need to work out where yours are. So this is just an example on the screen. What we do is we look for all 6, and the way that we do that is we often try and pair them together. So the widest or the most widest factor combination, the easiest way to work that out is you go, what is the highest drive? Well, in this case, the highest drive is B because it's the furthest to the right. And the lowest drive, or the furthest to the left, is A. So this person, we would refer to them as B over A, because if we combined their B and their A, the B is higher than the A. So you can see I've left a little note, B is greater than A, and that's sort of how we write it. And then we would go to our cheat sheet and we would basically try and find the graph that looks like that. And you can see there is a graph right there that says B over A, and it crosses the midpoint. So that's the next thing we're looking for. Does it jump over the line? So I can see that B is higher than the A. Great, that's what I'm going to be. Does it jump over the midpoint? Well, yes, it does, because B is high and A is low. The next factor combination we can see there is D and A, and D is greater than A. It's further to the right. So I would go to my cheat sheet and I would circle that one. B is higher than C, because see how it's further on the right there. The C is on the low side. So again, B over C, you can see that on my cheat sheet and I can circle that one. And the same goes for D over C. So all of those 4, they all jumped over the midpoint. They all crossed over the midpoint as we were talking about them. Then it gets quite interesting. What is higher, C or A? So if we look at these two connected, is A higher than C or is the C higher than A?
B's higher.
Nice. So we would say it is C is higher than A, or C over A. But can you see that they're both sitting on the low side of the graph? They both sit on the left-hand side of that midpoint. So I would go to my cheat sheet and it would say C over A, but even you can see in the image, the C is on the high side. Well, I don't have that. My C is on the low side. And then there's a little explanation that says both low. So we would circle that answer. We would circle that, not the top bit, because the C isn't on like the extreme high side. And the language will change. And this is why we have to be very specific with where we plot it, because if we plot it incorrectly, we will say the wrong thing. So we want to make sure that we're quite accurate with how we are plotting people. So that's just a very quick example. We'll go through and have a look at it in a little bit of extra detail. Now, you can see here on these, I've got 3 examples for you. The top graph, A is higher than B. So we would say A over B. The next graph, the A is also higher than B. So it's A over B. And then the third graph, yeah, both low. The third graph, A over B, but now they're on the high side.
Mhm.
So all of them, all of these 3 graphs, we would refer to all of the people or results. They're all task orientated, which is A over B. You can see here, A over B is task orientated. But the degree of their task orientation changes because of where their factors sit. And if we were to just talk it through, so it makes sense, with that top graph, if I had a very dominant person who's very self-driven, self-motivated, and they're quite reserved, they are going to be that top description you can see there. So their communication style will be direct and to the point. It'll be blunt under pressure because that's where they're trying to get to where they're going and they're not going to use too many words, right? If you think about it logically. Delegating authority, well, they want to be in the driver's seat. So they're probably going to find delegating authority quite challenging, or they're going to find it hard. Problem solving, creative solutions, they're quite analytical, they're probably in their head, but very creative because they want to get to where they're going. And decision making would be quite individual because they've got all these great ideas that they want to get to where they're going, but they're probably not going to verbalize a lot. So because of that lower B. So see how all of these things are coming together because they're combining each of the factors together and they're intersecting. And then we're predicting how they're going to go about it. Now, they're still task orientated, but once the dominance drops down to the low side, this person is no longer this high dominant drive person. They're more collaborative. So they're going to probably be a little bit more considered and building consensus while still being task orientated. So you can see the description then changes. It says they're analytical with a lower A, less venturesome, doing things in a more cautious but practical way, ingenious problem solving based on detailed information. Management style is still authoritative with less talk, more discipline, little delegation of authority. So the nuance and description changes. It also changes if it was up on the high side because now they're more social. The extraversion drive has come up. So you're going to see this, but with less introspection, and they're going to be more venturesome. So again, the description changes. So it's very important that we plot which one is it. Does it cross the midpoint or is it both low or both high? So let's map all of you so that you can get used to doing the exercise. Now, what I've done is I've done little screenshots of all of your results so that I can sort of mark it up for you if we need. And I can hover over people's results. Now, Alan, I'm going to look at your result. Which one are you? Are you A over B? Are you task orientated or are you B over A?
A over B.
Nice. And do you cross the midpoint or are you both high or but yes, you do. Yeah, because it looks just like this graph. Guy, what are you in this example? And you are on mute, so.
I'm A over B, both low.
Nice. Perfect. Great answer. Here's a tricky one. Penelope, what are you?
I'm A over B, but I don't cross over. I'm not high, not low.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, isn't it? So we would say you probably are A over B, but if you would also do A over B both high, it's almost like a little bit of blend of those two things.
Okay.
Tony, what are you?
Yes, A over B, not crossing the midline.
Great. And on the high side.
And
So
on
you'll
the
be
high
A
side.
over B, both high.
Both high, yeah.
Great. So everyone here is A over B. You're all task orientated. That's a fun fact for this group.
Is that surprising?
Nothing surprises me anymore.
Oh.
You'd think as chairs, at least one of us would have a little bit of people orientation.
Who was B over A? Andrew Wynn was B over A.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else was there. We definitely have them. Like it's not like it's universal. Lots of diversity. It's just the joy of bringing all of us together, just the chances. So, but even with the group, we've got some that cross and some that are low, some that are high.
Glenn Simpson.
And it's good. Pardon?
Glenn Simpson's very
Glenn.
close.
Glenn is interesting because, and he couldn't make it today, very last minute, but he is A over B. Can you see? It's a bit hard to see on this graph. They're what we refer to as stacked. So his A and his B are like on top of each other, which makes him situational. So he can be task orientated or people orientated. So he's a little bit more of a flexor, but he's on the both low side. So he's going to be, again, he's not going to be very independent. He's going to be quite collaborative, people orientated. Yeah, he's going to go between both of these two things, but not in an extreme way at all. All right.
And when you know his background, that makes perfect sense.
And when you interact with him, you see it, because I've been chatting to him a lot recently, and you can almost hear it in his language. That let's talk about the task. Oh, let's talk about the person. Let's talk about the task. Let's talk about the person. You will come across people who are more people orientated, this higher B, low A. You will have them in your groups. I know you have them in your groups. You're going to see them show up in terms of their communication style, how they delegate. It's going to be a little bit easier. It's like, no, you drive. That's fine. Problem solving, very collaborative, and then decision making, very consensus based. I will give you an example. So I'm working with the board and an executive team at the same company, and every board member and every executive member is A over B.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think might be going on with their workforce?
Your culture challenges?
Potentially. In what way would you think? Like just broadly thinking.
Under pressure, for overwhelmed, because there'll be a culture of just doing rather than actually taking stock of the people impact.
Loved that language choice there, the people impact. They had made lots and lots and lots and lots of decisions as an board and executive. And when I spent time with them and asked where those decisions had come from, particularly around their people initiatives, I'm like, great. Where were your focus groups? Who did you speak to? Did you talk to your staff? Where did you come up with all of these ideas? We decided. And I believe it stems from there was no one. And when I started talking about, well, you've made all these decisions, but you haven't spoken to any of the people that it directly impacts. There was no consensus building. And it just gets amplified when you just do a lot of people and then they're all at the top making the decision. So it was more, so that's sort of how it turned up, was the lack of consultation with staff around decisions that were directly impacting them. Which they thought was quite interesting once you start looking at the data of why that had happened. But also then learning from it. Okay, well, we don't have anyone thinking about that. How can we add that to the process so that we are consulting with and trying to build consensus on the journey versus just telling people that this is happening?
I must say, I was on a board where there was one person who's very, very clearly people focused, and it was so beneficial for the board.
Oh, good. Well, that's nice insight.
Because it needs to be there, and actually having that one person there who brought us back to what's the people impact of this is very enormous benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've seen the inverse, by the way. I worked with an executive team month where everyone was B over A, and it was like an NDIS style business, very not for profit as well. And they're all B over A. So I saw the inverse happening when nothing was happening, because it was like, oh no, we need to consult with, and you're like, okay, but at what point are you going to do something with this information? So, it's not like there's an ideal version of any of this. It's just being aware of what you have and then looking at, well, what should we consider based on all of our behavioral preferences? And have we missed something here? But this is when you start looking at collective groups of people, how it starts to amplify and show up in group behavior, which I love looking at because I just think that stuff's so interesting as you walk into the room. All right, let's have a look at the next drive, or the drivers connected. So
Alicia,
we're going to look at that.
can I just ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Just why couldn't you be extrovert and still have a focus on task? What would be?
You can.
Yeah.
So Tony is that. So Tony has
Right.
a higher level of extroversion, but his dominance is just higher than his people.
Yeah.
So he's A over B, both high. So he will get the task done, but is very likely to get everyone on board whilst executing the task
Okay.
because of that high extroversion. So high extroversion with high dominance are high influence style patterns. Always say, well, get everyone to get on the bus, but in a way that's willing, but also with a level of authority when needed.
So you look at the relativity if you're looking at a member. Yeah, on that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
great way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. And you can also have a B over A, this task orientated with the A still on the high side. So that's actually me, by the way. So I'm a high extrovert, but high dominance, but my extroversion is higher than my dominance. So I always say I'm the smiling assassin. I've like convinced you that it was a great idea. And then you're like, wow, this is so much fun. I'm like, it is fun, but I've somehow got everyone on board with the journey, right? And it allows me to facilitate a room of 100 people at times where everyone's like, how did we all achieve that in such a short period of time? And you're like, well, but it's the combination of extroversion and dominance. Tony will have a version of that as well, very similar, but slightly different. But we both show up fairly similar. Sorry, Tony, I'm picking on you and me. Yeah. And this is where this stuff's so interesting, right? That's what I say to you. Like once you get to this level, you're really looking at those nuances of someone's result, not just A, B, C, D, which I think is very two-dimensional. I like this because we start to see it in color and in more three-dimensional. Okay. Let's jump into how people take action and whether we're more proactive or more responsive. So when we've got that higher dominance drive, and I've tried to sort everyone's results. When we've got that higher dominance drive, we're up there, where are we heading, big picture. Then we start to add it with our patience drive, which is our pace, our urgency, needing that variety, or needing stability. So if you're that more dominant, low patience, how do you respond to pressure? Well, Tony, Andrew, Alan, Keith to a certain degree, Tim, Penelope, you thrive under pressure. What we call a positive response to pressure. In fact, and I will say this sometimes to members, you need an element of pressure to actually perform. Actually, a really bad environment for you is no pressure. You become quite disengaged. It's like there's no force to allow the pressure, the performance to happen. When it comes to adapting to change, we would say you adapt easy, and often are the change initiators, or we refer to you as a change agent. You're the one who's like, oh, this thing isn't working very well for us. Let's look at it. Let's change this up. So we see more A over C people initiating change around them, and are very comfortable to do that. Well, we don't have to always do the things the way we've always done it. So you might see them making change or initiating change. Side note, for newly appointed CEOs who have this style of pattern, their desire to be disruptive very quickly is very high. And so they're the ones you often have to be like, we need to wait 100 days before you do anything. Because they'll want to come in the first 30 days. They're like, okay, I'm ready. You know, because it's that drive to initiate change. So taking action, they'll be quite decisive, proactive, again, in taking action. Listening. Now, this is an interesting one. And I'll tell you why it's this. It's sparing and finds it difficult. Because we're wanting to go where we're going and we want to work fairly quickly with variety and change and pace, listening takes more energy because it requires us to stop, pause, be present, and not think about anything else. So we would predict that you would find it harder than our C over A's.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say you won't listen and you can't listen and you haven't learned and trained and built that muscle and that skill. It's to say that naturally staying focused, staying present and listening is harder. You're going to have to flex that muscle. If you are more C over A, we're more patient. We have more patient drive of that consistency and stability. and we've got lower dominance, we are more collaborative, consensus, team orientated. Response to pressure, well, it's with a little bit more caution. Like, hold on, why are we changing this? Like, what's happening here? And so they need, it says here, taking time to understand the change. And this big statement of needs to understand the why. If you go and just implement change to a C over A person, they're often your best change agents. But if you do not explain the why, they will not be on board. Take action very carefully. They'll review what you said. They'll sit down. They'll map out a plan. Again, my director of talent is this. I'm up there, proactive, 100 miles an hour. Let's do this thing. Let's do a breakfast. Let's do this. Let's do that. And she'll come back and she'll just map it out. Like, yeah, of course, no worries. Like, she's happy to get on board with the change, but we'll map it out. And we'll listen very well because they've got that calmer drive to them. So Glenn and Guy are our C over A's. Guy, would you say that's sort of you're resonating with some of the language there?
To an extent, I think I am one of those people that almost need pressure. So that bit doesn't really resonate. I am someone who needs to understand the why. There's no question about that. So, you know, a bit of both.
Yes, yeah. And so with the pressure thing, so it's not, and again, that's where there's sort of everyone's profile is very nuanced. We would have to look at, well, how do you define pressure and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it would be something, for example, like a deadline. I'll do nothing about it until in the last minute.
And then do it.
And then I'll do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I must admit, if I was asked, is Guy proactive or responsive in our environment, I'd say proactive.
Yes. And it might show up because, and again, my director of talent is C over A, and she takes so much action and is so proactive. And I've sat with her and we've gone through this so many times that she trains it. She's like, I am proactive when it's the things I want to do and that it's planned. Does that make sense? So she comes across as very proactive. And she is to a certain extent, but it's actually her planning that's kicking in, not actually her proactivity. Because of her high C, of wanting to know what's coming. So she will take action because she wants to plan so far ahead. So it's really coming just from a different place than maybe where it's coming from others, but it's displayed as that behavior. And that's where there's so much nuance in this space, right? When we talk about human behavior. And then looking at yourself and what does that mean for you and having the conversation around it. Well, what does pressure look like and in what conditions would that pressure not be okay? And that's what I train managers on is this doesn't replace the conversation that gets to happen around this, right? So just profiling people and looking at it and going, oh, that's nice is almost like what not to do, in my opinion. All things should come with a debrief, a conversation, using it back at work. That's where you're seeing the value because it's giving you context around the person. And ultimately, that's what it's all about because you want to get performance out of the person. And if you don't have the conversation, you can't work out what that really looks like. Because there's a lot of implied, you would read some of these things. And that's why often people say to me, oh, the report was fine or good, but having the conversation with you around it is like, oh, that's more accurate. Right. And that's where you can't just take these words at face value. It's meant to be an explainer.
Leisha,
right.
if you just permit a quick case study, recently in a Queensland Chairs meeting, there'd been a significant decision that the group was making in change, moving from our usual Queensland Chairs to the Vistage Chair Group model. And a decision had been taken that just floated out without execution. And the group that was, or the one or two that were sitting on the fence or not taking a decision, floated back into it. And so I guess it was my proactive self stepped in and said, well, look, we decided we were going to do that. Let's get on with it. And another member who I imagine might have been C over A erupted a bit, and he said he basically challenged me, and I think misread me, because his words were, it seems that Tony just keeps at the issue until it's done his way. And he said, I'm sick of it, or something like that. And what I'm hearing from what you're saying now, I was more interested in, I don't care what the decision is, but let's get a decision and get on with it. Whereas the fence sitters couldn't take the decision, which was into that responsive thing. So I'm not asking, I've done a lot of reflection how I might have handled that situation. I simply claimed, you're badly misrepresenting me. This is what I'm seeking to do. I'm not pursuing a particular decision. I'm pursuing a decision and get on with it and execute.
Yep.
Comment on that?
I'm just seeing your decisiveness kick in, right?
Yeah.
And that's that. I would prefer that we do something than nothing.
And for the other person, why was that triggering him? If he was responsive?
It depends is my answer to that. So sometimes it could come from a dominant drive and wanting control and them feeling out of control. Sometimes it could come from a need for, yes, stability and consistency, and this is change. And sometimes it's coming from their lack of, or their need for rules and structure, and maybe it was not clear for them and they couldn't proceed without that clarity. So actually, without looking at their profile, I couldn't tell you why the friction was there, but I could almost say, oh, it could come from these different areas. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, as a consequence, I'm going to suggest the whole group does a PI on the whole group, and we discuss it at one of our meetings.
Yeah.
I think it'd be very helpful for us.
Yeah.
I've got all the data. If you, well, not all chairs, but I have some. Yeah. So
we'll fill in
happy
the
to
gaps.
assist. That's it. All right. Let's have a look at risk. And then actually, in answer to your question there, Tony, it could have come down with their feeling about risk. So it could have been lots of different things going on. This is such an interesting one, right? When we think about business, so much of business is about risk. Now, I don't mean actually like commercial risk. Risk is lots of things. It could be, doesn't always have to be things like safety or spending lots of money. Sometimes people view change as risk. Sometimes people view a new system as risk. Sometimes people view lots of different things as risk. So risk is a broad term here. I just want you to think risk is broad. Could be new ideas. It could be doing something differently. It could be an element of change, but risk. So if you have a high dominance drive, which we've got a lot of people here who've got that high dominance, low formality, and I actually moved Tony and Andrew up the top there so we could see that they sort of fit this pattern, as do a lot of you. We're more comfortable with risk. I always say risk equals opportunity. Let's give it a go. Bring it on. Let's give it a try. Decision-making will be quick and easy more generally, because it's like, okay, well, we'll fail fast, and then we'll fix and we'll learn and we'll move forward. And their need for rules around doing something they've never done before are relatively low, right? Their ability to deal with ambiguity, let's give it a crack. And no, we don't have an instruction book, but that's fine. And so then we've got sort of the inverse, which is a higher formality and a lower dominance drive, which we don't really have anyone that's got this wide spread. Guy, you're behind Glenn, and you don't, anyway, your A and your D, same with Glenn, are quite stacked, a little bit more situational in how you view risk. But we do get people who are more cautious with risk. And so they are more, they want to protect the company from risk. They're more worrisome around it. Decision-making is careful and considered. Need for rules, well, they need those rules and structure, and they're probably going to create them if they need to do something in this space. Great combination of people to work together, because you might have those people who are like, yep, let's jump out of the airplane without the parachute. And you got the people that go, let's check that the parachutes are working before we jump out of the airplane. The best way to describe this one for you to remember it, because ultimately it's like, how much can you retain, is the dominance drive, your A, is if you were driving a car towards risk and unknown, think of the A as your accelerator as you're driving your car. And so we can look at Andrew, and Andrew's got his foot to the floor. Good for you, Andrew. You were driving very quickly. Tony is driving quite fast. He's got his foot down. Keith, you got your foot down. Penelope, Tim, Alan, you've all got your foot down on that accelerator. It's just varying degrees of how much you're pushing that accelerator towards risk in this car. And the D factor in your results is how much brake you apply while you're driving. And some of you have more, like Alan. Yes, your A is quite high, but your D crosses the midpoint. So Alan, you're quite interesting here, because you're what we refer to as, and Tim is the same, this cautious risk taker. So you're still a risk taker, but you're a cautious risk taker. So you're really going to consider, you're excited by the risk and like, perfect profile. Well, we don't say that, Andrew, but we do love Alan. So like, I did marry one of these though, so maybe it is perfect. So
it is perfect. It is the perfect profile.
I have no biases, guys. It's fine. Yeah. But can you start to see that even as you look at your own graphs, you go, okay, here's my accelerator, and how much brake do I apply while I'm driving? And you're all different. You've all got different driving patterns here. But you can start to see how we're viewing risk and how we're approaching driving this car into the unknown, which is super interesting, because I think this is one of the things that creates lots of conflict at work that we see shows up all the time, is like, well, how you'll get that entrepreneurial founder, and I know a lot of you deal with not just CEOs, but sometimes those founder patterns that are entrepreneurial. I have spent a lot of time in that space working with founders. My research has about 70% of founders falling within the maximum risk taker. And I'm sure that's not a surprise to any of you. Penny, you're nodding along like, yes. Oh, actually, because you're dealing a lot with the SB groups. Is that right?
Both. Yeah, I've got both, but I've got founders in both.
Yeah, okay.
My 2 CE foundation members, I'm still building my CE group. They're both founders. One's in the space industry, and high risk.
Can't wait to profile them. And see what we can find here, because it's really interesting with those founders. And I'm sure it's no surprise to you that entrepreneurial, I will mortgage my house for my business idea, higher risk pattern, they're willing to invest in their ideas and all those things, right? So but we see a lot of conflict show up at work around this, because and here's some language I hear in a lot of CEOs I work with: we want everyone just to fail fast. Or it'll even turn up in their language, and you're like, you're okay with failure. You've got a whole workforce who is not. And so the culture can come off the back of this in many ways, shapes and forms. So I do sometimes see, and Tony, you might find this interesting, when sometimes we look at the company values. If I have a very high risk pattern founder or CEO, the values can often reflect values that are things like innovation, doing things differently. We hear these more risk-taking values that come out in the organization. This is like where this stuff goes down a few layers. And I often look at the founder or the CEO who's leading that values initiative, and I can hear their preference for those things come through in the language of the culture they're trying to create, which is we're okay to fail fast and get stuff done. And there's often quite a close connection to some of their PI results, as well as you know, their values. But I just think it's very interesting, because it's not always, and this is where I come and challenge them, it's not always what the organization needs to be successful. It's just their preference, and they think it's the right way because it's how they're hardwired.
Can I just add on to what I was saying, Alicia? It's a perfect example. This particular company, yes, the founder, engineering background, but very unusual in terms of being a high risk taker in the space industry. But his team is not risk orientated at all, because they have to be super, super safe, and you know, risk is not something it comes easily to them. So that's hence creating this challenge, and he's looking to double his team within the next 6 months. So, you know, building that team and scaling it with a risk culture is difficult.
Yeah. Yes, and comes with so many challenges, right? Like, yeah. And it's also a lot of this stuff we carry with us from our biases in the way we want to work. And often when we look at CEOs, it's the way they want to lead the organization. And you do hear it often come up in their language if they're not really, really, really self-aware. Hence why self-awareness is such an important component of leadership, because if they're not consciously aware of this preference and what really the organization needs, they're going to come in and lead with this style or preference and then expect that upon others. And that may actually not be the right decision, depending on where the organization is going and what's going on with the strategy, and so many factors you have to look at. Any questions or reflections on this before I move to the next one? Lots of deep thinking faces.
Well, I think it's the same thing about having balance in a board or a team, and because you don't want out and out risk taking in a team. You want people to present a different viewpoint also. But our groups are full of people like this.
Yeah. Yes, and your group in particular, Andrew, with your group I saw not that long ago, we've got lots of that sort of top half of risk taking, don't we, with those members. Yeah, makes them a fun group to work with, though.
Yeah, well, it's a new group, so to an extent they've actually had a blind faith to come into a group, if you think about it.
I will pull it up in our next session. Because obviously I've profiled 1,300 Vistage members over 6 years. We ran just some broad analytics over it, and I posted it, like just some analytics about a year ago of like the most common profile that's at Vistage in terms of what are the trends. Are we all interested? Would you like me to reshare it?
Just quickly before we get to that, Alicia, just given that you've put the 6 versions that you've got there, is it 6 yet? My zigzag profile doesn't appear there. Am I just looking at the relationship between A and D? So I would be like the very careful one, but they're both on the high side, so it feels like that's not quite right.
No, so your D is higher than your A.
Yeah.
Just so slightly. So you would be a D over A. But so moderate, like to the point where it's almost situational.
Yeah.
So it would be more this D over A, but like very skinny is what I would say for your profile. And similar to Glenn, like both of your A and Ds are almost stacked over the top of each other. So it's this situational thing about risk for you, I would say.
I mean, when you look at those descriptions, I'm absolutely rules are just suggestions. I'm a generalist. I consider myself a generalist, not a specialist. So, those two things are on the A over D, but I do want to mitigate risk, and I do think carefully about doing things. It's not quick and easy, but it is. It's more of the careful. So there's 2 things that seem to align, and then 2 things that are from the other side.
Yeah. Hence that situational piece. You're like a bit of that and a bit of that.
Yeah.
And when we talk about rules and how you feel about rules, we're going to get to that in our C over D. And you are correct. You are casual with rules. You don't need rules and structure, which is super interesting, but you are a C over D. So we're going to get to that.
Right. Okay.
Okay. All right. So the next factor combination is this B and C, how we connect, whether we're more quick to connect or we're going to take a little bit of time to connect. Who would be our widest? Our widest example of B over C would probably be Tony, where your B is on the high side, C is on the low side. A lot of you still have, like Penelope, you've got a B over C. It's just very skinny. Tim's is B over C, but on the low side. Andrew, yours is B over C, but it's very skinny. Alan, your B over C is just locked over the top of itself. So it's situational. Keith, your C is higher than your B, just so slightly. And Guy, C over B, same with Glenn. So a little bit of variance in the group here. So if we're more quick to connect, connection with others is quick. We want to persuade others. Our communication is very enthusiastic. We listen to preserve the relationship. We get to the point, but I'm here for you. Working in groups. I saw you chuckle there, Tony. I always laugh at that one too. I'm like, yeah, I hear you. Let's keep the conversation moving though. Working in groups, B over C people, great at building consensus in a group because they're like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then they like build that connection with the others and they'll motivate others in the group. And then our C over B, we're more reserved. So we're going to take time to build our relationships. What's really interesting about C over B people is, yes, they take a little bit longer to build that initial connection, but once they've built it, it's often very strong. So they're the type of people that takes time, but once they're there, that's like will become a very important and deep connection with that for them. And we see this show up in the people that they work with. They'll have almost like a trusted group of people that they go to all the time, that they'll sit next to, but they take a little bit longer to get there. And working in groups, you might see them sit back a little bit more. They may not surface their ideas up front until they're very comfortable. And I'll use an example. I worked a lot in IT because that was my original background. And I went to facilitate for a creative agency, all these divisions, and then I had to go and do the developers. And they were like, they warned me. They're like, you're not going to get anything out of them, Alicia. I don't even know why you're going to run this workshop. I was doing something about their culture. And I was like, don't you worry, just leave me the IT people. And I'd already profiled them. So I knew they were this, right? And I put them all in a room together and they were all like, lots of lively conversation when I walked in. They're all chatting with each other. As soon as I walked in, they certainly got a lot quieter. But once I got them going, they were all very happy to talk to each other, share their ideas. And I sort of was talking to them a little bit about this, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to share our views in a company-wide town hall, but we will work together, and like they've got a very close connection. But they're often perceived as more reserved to the wider organization. And they've got that very close connection with each other. And it's something for you to think about, because if you get more C over B people, and we can talk about this when you recruit new members into your group, how you would onboard them into a new group, and what might be the best way to do that. Because this would be one of the things I'd quickly look at for you, and we'd be like, okay, if they're quick to connect, this is, you could not say leave them, but they're going to go out and talk to everyone naturally. But a C over B person, you kind of going to need to like pre-warm them up to the group and maybe do some slow intros. They're the type of people that would do well if they met with members one-to-one outside of the meeting, so that they started to build that rapport. Just how you might set them up might look a little bit different, I would suggest. And you're probably intuitively doing this stuff anyway, but it's just something to think about now if you get their results before they join.
I think it's a pretty key point, to be honest. I had this with a potential member this week, and I'm wondering whether this, I would say our process, tends to want to get a decision from people quickly. It's, I say to people, I've got a process, but I can see, I think it's a major point for once A, for the decision making, and then B, when they arrive in the group. Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, because
So
you'll
actually
have some.
doing this before you even have a discussion could be good.
Yeah. And I've got another couple of chairs that have been using this for a long time, and that's exactly how they use it. Is they go and use it as a meet and greet and coffee and get to know you anyway, and then it's sort of there in the background to help them work out, well, who do I sit them with, who do I how do I best onboard them underneath the surface, just to really set that person up for success, right? Because again, it's stuff I know you're all intuitively doing, but this probably just gives you that insight of, oh, this is what I really should do. Because again, if you've only met them once or twice, you don't really get a good sense of them.
Just a question though, for anybody, and maybe it's something we talk about later, but whether or not you would use this with somebody who hasn't actually joined yet as a member, they're just a prospect.
Yes.
And whether you are, giving them value that you really want to say, well, when you join, we're going to do this.
Yeah, I would suggest so. And certainly in terms of your capability and ability to use it, I would encourage you to do it that way. Because I actually think, I know for me, I mean, it's obviously I do this for a living, but getting someone to do with a 5-minute, hey, I'd love for you to complete this, before I meet you, having those results there when you meet them is like, hey, one of the things we're going to spend time on when you join is developing you as a leader. And one of the things you're going to keep learning about is who you are and how you work. And I've had you do this quick assessment and You could, I want to get to know you better. And this is what I can see about you. And what are the areas you want to work on? And Like, it would really easily come into the conversation as a high value thing as well. Like, this is the type of insights you're going to get when you join. And this and so many other things, right?
It's a bit contrary to our sales process where I try not to, they go, oh, this is great. I really enjoyed that. Thanks very much. See you later. Our sales process is more to provide insights around where the value comes, but more importantly, to get them to feel the need to do this sort of thing. Like, one of their blockers is that they don't really have insights like this. But if you join, you get insights like this. And you need them because you're coming unstuck. Because, for example, you're looking after all these engineers. And why the hell can't engineers just take some risk?
Yeah. And look, what I want to do, one of our next session is, in terms of what's to come, is really diving into how we could use it and how you could use it really inside of your own recruitment process. Because I think there's lots of different ways to do it. And I will certainly just say, here are some ideas and options, and you guys can really work out, well, what's going to work best for all of you. Because I don't know what your recruitment process is for a standard member, but here's what you can do, and it doesn't cost anything, and there's no negative impact. It's only a positive thing. It's for you. It's more about how would you want to use it so that it adds value for you and them in your conversation.
If I can add a comment to this conversation, I think the PI is another tool in addition to the other things that we have learned to do on our journey. And I still use a system that I was teaching 30 years ago. I can ask half a dozen questions of somebody and I've pretty much nailed who they are if I do that not too deeply. So how I approach that person based upon that information will determine some of the questions that Guy was posing there. And I never I don't follow the Vistage process. I never have, I never will, because I think it's flawed in many, many ways.
How does that fit with this profile, Alicia?
No comment.
I disagree with the way I filled this profile out with you, though. because I don't think I'm a C over B, but there you go. That was the day I did it, obviously.
No, it's not the day you did it. I'll challenge you. It's not the day you did it.
Okay. Well, I don't want to waste other people's time with that for me, but they're close enough together that it doesn't really have that much impact, I think.
Yes. Well, yes, it's a moderate part of your profile.
Yes.
Yeah.
No stigmas involved.
Correct, because it's C over B on the low side. Look at you, Keith. You're just like, I love that you're all catching it. It's good. All right. So the second last one we'll look at is just how you view this thing around whether you're more informal or formal in some of your interactions. So the bigger style extraversion patterns who don't need any rules and structure, they're going to show up more informal. When they provide direction, much more big picture. Sharing ideas, less of a filter. Will like to share everything that comes to mind, or at least verbalize their thinking. Let's talk it out is often what we refer to it as. And will comfortably delegate details. So quicker to trust, you know, here it is, let's go through it together, but this is yours now, so here's the keys. Much more informal. Then we've got a more formal interaction style, which is our D over B, which is many of you. Alan, you would be D over B because you're crossing the midpoint. You're probably the only D over B that crosses the midpoint though. Oh, Guy, kind of. And Tim Coates a little bit. So when we're more formal, we will provide more detailed instructions. There's sort of a right way to do something, and I'm going to share with you the right way to do it, and here it is, and it's very clear. Sharing ideas, selective, I'll share the right information, and delegating provides a nice amount of structure, and it'll take them time to trust. So probably delegate something, let me watch you do it, let me come back, let me make sure you've done it correctly. Here's a question for you. Who is best suited to onboard a new staff member?
Formal.
A over B.
Any other opinions? Tony, you're on mute.
I think either can be effective. Depends on how we go about it. I can see D over B having advantages, but I can see equally strong advantages for B over D.
Agree. Okay, so cool insight, Tony. Very balanced. You're spot on, because our B over D can often talk to the vision and the future and like paint you a picture and let me whiteboard you the organization and let me talk about the org chart and like the flow of things, right? And then you've got the more formal style who are like, now let me actually show you how to do your job. So combination can be really helpful. Imagine if you only got onboarded by a B over D person and then didn't, and Penelope, I'm thinking of your spatial engineering big picture vision stuff, and the engineer's like, but what software are we using, and where are the files, and how do we do a compliance report? You know what I mean? Like hypothetically, just being very extreme here. So this is where a balance, you know, and looking at your team and looking at, you know, who will meet with them and what does that look like and what are they responsible for. Obviously you'd have onboarding things, but that's just a prime example of, you know, there's so much turnover in people's first 6 months, and people, yes, we need to look at the right person in the right role. And then the next thing I look at is show me how they were onboarded. And it's the very next place I go. Because if we turned over in the first 6 months, our fault, their fault, whatever, let's look at this. How were they introduced to the organization? What are their reasons for leaving? And is there something we could have done differently in terms of their onboarding to give them the right balance and also meet them where they're at? If they're a more D over B person, they probably want to get into the detail of their role. So we can really look at that as well once we start looking at the organization. So interesting. All right, our very last one is whether we're more casual with rules. And Guy, this is where this kicks in for your profile around what you said. We're more C over D, higher patience, lower formality, or whether we're more careful with rules, like Tim and Alan. Everyone else is C over D. Some of you cross the midpoint. Some of you are like C over D, both low. So again, making sure that you're finding the spot on your cheat sheet. So don't just go, oh, I'm C over D here on the slides. Many of you are C over D, both low. So it's like very informal, freewheeling, unconcerned about the book, delegates with little follow-up, focused on the overall idea, big picture. Yeah, so you start to see the nuance there, which would be relevant for Andrew, Tony, Keith. Oh, Penny, you're kind of stacked. I'm really sorry to tell you, you don't really get one of these. So you're a bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so casual with rules, when we think about following rules or enforcing them, it's like, that's nice. Rules are good. We like rules, but we're pretty relaxed about them. Like, it's nice that they exist, probably want to make sure they're there, but do you go back to them all the time? Maybe not so much. You're pretty relaxed about it. Often people who are more casual with rules are more flexible about things. And I see this in HR people that I work with. There are people who are like, this is the policy, this is the policy. And then there's that's the policy, but it doesn't actually make any logical sense given the scenario. Let's see if we can get an exemption. Like, there's just different ways of working, and it's very predictable based on their profile here. Yeah, structure is more of a guide. Dealing with deadlines, I would say deadlines are a little bit more negotiable. Like, I know we said this, it doesn't really matter if we just delay it by a day, not a big deal, doesn't impact anybody. A little bit more flexible about things, but will be very persistent because of their high patience drive. So they will stick with things. So those high patience drive people will keep going, even though the deadline's lapsed. Okay, we're a day late, but we'll keep going and let's just still hit the deadline. People who are more careful with rules are here to be followed. Working with structure, very much like we're going to give clarity. Let's create tasks, due dates, deadlines, who's responsible. Love a good racy chart often. And dealing with deadlines are rigid and they're structured. And I'll give you a prime example, which I don't normally do, but for this one, my husband is that, D over C. I'm obviously not. He's helped me get a lot of your Vistage accounts set up, and he's doing a lot of the filing moving because we've had a change in our administrator. And he's been like adamant that every folder must be done. I'm like, nobody needs software access today. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, if we don't have everyone perfectly set up, it'll be fine. And he's like, this is the deadline. You are running training. Everyone will have access. And so our views on it are quite different in how we both interact around something as simple as, a workshop and system access, things like that. And it's good to be aware of people's profiles in terms of how they show up. All right. Now, there is a little nuance here. You'll actually see on your cheat sheet, if you've been close enough to look, on the D over C, so on the right-hand side, on the both low, can you see it's got a little thing that says corporate hook? So the corporate hook, it actually looks like Tim's profile, kind of, if I could zoom in. So it's when the D is higher than the C, so it's a D over C, but they're on the both low. And you can literally see it because it kind of looks like a little hook on their profile. Some of your members have it, and we refer to it as the corporate hook. And so what's really interesting about their profile is, so their D is still on the low side. So I would normally, you're like, okay, well, you're informal, you don't need rules and structure, you're very, relaxed about those things. But because they're D over C on the low side, what we say to them is you're into details, rules and structure, but only on things you like, you're interested in, or you have to do. And when I say that sentence, I think their brain breaks. They're like, how do you know that? They're like, that is exactly me. I'm like, yeah. And if it's not, you have to do it, you like it, or you just won't do it. And they're like, yeah. But there are some things I'm obsessed about with the details. I'm like, I know, because you like it, you're interested, or no, you have to do it. And it's a really important little nuance. If you're plotting someone with a D over C on the low side, this corporate hook, I will just say to you, please, like when you see that now and you circle it, like talk to them about it, because it shows up in really interesting ways. I used to work directly for a CEO when I was at Tequila, that Salesforce company. She had the corporate hook. She was so laissez-faire about most things, but she had like a sales background. She would get like obsessed about parts of the P&L, particularly about like realization and revenue. And if she went investigating on something, you did not want to be in her way, because she was like so detailed to the point where you got kind of scared at how much she knew about certain things. So the rest of the executive team found her quite hard to understand, because they're like, she's so relaxed about so many things, but then she gets like crazy obsessed about a detail over here. And I said, yeah, because she's really interested in it. Like, and if it sparks her curiosity, she will become so knowledgeable about that thing. And I've just seen it show up time and time again. And again, it's so interesting when you're working with CEOs, because if they've got it, you're like, tell me about the things that you become obsessed about from a details perspective. Like, what are the things that really spark your interest and your curiosity? And what are the things that are really important for you? And really being curious about that with them, because they will be so shocked that you know that about them, because they don't necessarily even know it about themselves. They just sort of, when you say it though, they go, oh my God, that's so true. So I'm gifting you the torch of being a bit in their brain about these things. And look, all of this will spark great conversation. That's what it's all about, right? Like, how do we have a really good quality conversation with our members about themselves and lift that self-awareness for them? All right. Any questions or reflections at this point? Does anyone want to share anything? Is there anything that anyone has any questions before we continue on? I'll take that as a no. I'm going to show you how to do this in the tool later on, is looking at, I'm going to show you how to do like your group analytics of your members. And then one of the tabs on there is factor combinations. So now that you know what a factor combination is, it's this. I could look at, imagine you're a Vistage group and you're all members. I could walk into that room and go, they're all A over B to some way, shape or form. So they're all task orientated. Can you see I've got 8 out of you, which is 8 out of 8 are task orientated. So I need to know that communication is going to be direct. Like, we're going to need to get into it, right? And then I've got majority of you are proactive, which means I got to get this show on the road. Like, and then 6 out of the 8 are high risk or open to risk. Okay, well, that's good to know, right? So this then gives you this really nice, interesting group analytics of sort of where people are sitting. What are some of those primary things? And I will show you how to look
is this
up.
the crux of it all? These 6 factors, in reality, like you look at people in different spheres, you got the 4 factors and then you got 6 factors.
Yeah, you've got the 4 factors and then you've got these factor combinations. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the core. Yes.
Yeah.
And then you start to look at, okay, well, how does this play out in, yes, you look at self and self-concept. And then when we do another session, we talk about plotting you in the wheel. The wheel is actually plotted based on factor combinations. And I've never explained that to any of you before, because it's just something we don't explain.
Yeah.
But when I get to it with you in that wheel, I can show you how to plot people without the tool, by the way, just with looking at their factor combinations and moving people around. So it starts to impact their position in a team. And yes, but the factor combinations is really, nail on the head, the crux of it. All right. Now, the one thing I want you to do in terms of an activity, and literally I'm going to give you 1 minute to do it, is I want you, so if you've mapped up your cheat sheet and you've circled where you are and which of these 6 and which one you are, I want you to now number them. I want you to go down the side and I want you to number them from widest to skinniest. So I'll use an example. So if I was Tim Coates, because he's not here, what is Tim Coates? What would I put a number 1 next to? Which factor combination?
AC.
Beautiful. I would put a 1 because his A over C is his widest. And then I work my way in. We want to do everything that crosses a midpoint. So do anything that crosses a midpoint, work your way in, and then do your both highs, both lows. And so you should have 6 numbers at the end. You should have 1 to 6 in some order here.
So Alicia, mine's a bit tricky because
It is.
yes, you can
So
see
your
more.
number 1 would be what, do you think?
I'm not sure if it's A over C or A over D.
Yeah, we would just do 1 as A over C
Okay.
and 2 for A over D.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do 3 as A over B.
Yeah.
4 would be B over C.
And
5 would be B over D.
over D.
And your CD hook lock is just number 6.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Guy, does that make sense?
So you preference if you cross the midline.
Correct?
So I would be number 1 C over B, number 2 C over A, number 3 D over B.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
And then maybe 4 is D over A, but not really because it's so skinny. And then you do 5 is A over B and 6 is C over D, or somewhere like 5 and 6 are a bit interchangeable. All right. Did everyone manage to tackle their numbering? I want to show you something. Now, the reason we get you to number the width is because your number 1, if we went through your cheat sheet and I was debriefing you, if I only had a very short period of time to go through your results with you, and I will go through this in another session about how to debrief someone, is when we number them, I work out the order in which I talk to you about them. Because, for example, like Penelope, with your D and C, I think it was like stacked over the top of each other. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, sometimes you like rules and sometimes you don't. It will feel like a very bad horoscope reading. I don't really want you to feel bad about doing these debriefs. So what we would do is we would go to your widest, and then that will really resonate, because your number 1 should be something when you read it, you're like, yeah, that's me. Like, definitely, I'm seeing that. It's the most prevalent thing. So we want you to do it in that order. Now, I've shown you how to do it because you're reading a pattern and you're doing your numbers, which I love that you're doing it this way. I'm just going to quickly show you in the system, because I love teaching people the old school way, because that's how you're going to learn it. But if we were to log into the system, and Alan, I'm just going to pull up your results in the tool because I need your version of the system to do it. And I'm hoping you're in here. Yeah. Oh, that's not you. I don't want that one. This data is not up to date. Let me find. The cool thing in the system is that it will tell you their factor combinations in the tool, which is great. And normally you wouldn't. Andrew, I was looking at you like, what are you doing? But you're taking a photo of your cheat sheet. I'm like, is he playing Nintendo? Is that what's going on? Like, what's happening
That's
here?
what I'm doing. I put all my stuff into notes.
I love that.
Yeah. Reminds
All
me.
right, so I'll pick on Guy's results here. So if I was to go into the tool, and let's say I'm picking up Guy's results, and I've gone in and I found Guy, it's got his graph here. We're looking at it and we're going, okay, his widest factor combination is C over B. If I scroll down, it's going to tell me that is number 1, C over B. The next widest is C over A, responsive. So the tool does what I just taught you how to do, and it puts it in the order. Most people will get this and not really think much of it, but now you understand factor combinations and you understand like the order and the width. You're going, oh, okay, great. This is now making a bit more sense. Otherwise, you'd look at this and not really know. You're like, okay, there's just some results, versus actually it's now in sequential order of widest to skinniest. And it's saying your A over B. Why has it got that there? Just that you're A over B. So, I mean, the tool is very good in terms of it giving you the insights, the description. But I always love having my cheat sheets because I just find it giving that extra richness, which is often not always in the tool. But I just thought I wanted to show you that you've got the 4 factors here. It doesn't actually say high C, low B, low A, high D, but it is putting it in sequential order. And then just presenting it in a way that people can understand it, because it is designed to be easy for people to understand it and not too technically jargoned. All right. All right, quiz time. What is the difference between these 2 profiles? Profile A, profile B. What is the difference?
The sigma.
Very good. In what way?
Well, the extreme.
Correct. So they become A to B has the same factor combinations. Like if we were to map this person out, the widest factor combination is A over C, A is their highest driver, A over B, A over D. The same would apply to the second person. We would map out our cheat sheets the same, but the intensity of graph 2 would be like turning up the dial of the speaker for this person.
Basically, they crashed the car already.
Well, see, there's an A with an arrow. I told you might see an arrow at some point. I debriefed a Vistage member yesterday, actually, with an A with an arrow. And I love debriefing these people, by the way. I just love spending time with them because it's so interesting to get to understand that and how it shows up and what they need to fulfill that and how much regulating they've done and what are the roles they've done. The curiosity is so interesting to see the things that they've done and where they're at in their journey with this, because it's not going anywhere, right? It's the question is, what are the things that sit over the top of their profile that they've learned and they want to learn, and how do we keep them motivated and how do we put them in the best place in the business? And also you're very welcome to moving forward as you start, and you will at some point go out and profile some of your other members. If you ever get a result and you're like, I don't know, you got a question mark, just call me. Like, just ring me. You can verbally tell me the profile over the phone and we can talk it through. Yeah, always happy to talk about any of the profiles that you find. It'll be like Pokemon. You want to collect them all now. You'll be like, I want to get one of every profile. All right. So this was a bit of it. So I wanted to talk about self and self-concept shifts. So the difference between those two graphs that you're going to get on the reports, and when those changes are easier for an individual and when those changes are very hard to make. So this is a result here on the screen. We've got a self graph and we've got a self concept. This person's self and self concept hasn't really changed very much. If you think about it, if I was to look at this A, it's only moved up, I don't know, maybe 4/5 of a sigma. It's moved up a little bit. The B has moved down 3/5. These are what we call very small movements. And we wouldn't really debrief on this. We would say, look, they're so small, very little tiny shifts. We want to see that they've moved more than 1 sigma. Then you've got a result that looks like this. So my question for you is, which factors are moving for this person that you can see here?
A and D particularly.
Very good. So the A has gone from being moderately to actually very low. And in their self-concept, it's gone to moderately high. This is a big shift. So naturally collaborative, service-orientated, but they perceive they need to be very independent. And in terms of D, they are naturally rule-orientated. They want to do things to a really high standard, but they perceive they need to be like, no rules. How might this person be feeling?
Confused.
Yes. But yeah, absolutely. So many things. So what I would like you to do in your PI books, I would love for you to turn to page 16. Now, this is a beautiful guide to tell you what you could talk about with this person and how you would frame it. So on page 16, it goes through the 4 factors here, and then it's got 2 columns. So we're really wanting to read the graph, which is what we just did. So we said with that dominance drive, there's a change. So we're going to go up to the dominance drive. And their dominance drive in the self-concept went higher. So it says, if higher in self-concept, I would say to this person, hello, Jessica, we've gone through all their profile and we say, look, naturally, you are a collaborative person. You want to work with people, blah, blah, blah. But I can see that you perceive a need to be, that's what it's done in the blue box. I can see that you perceive a need to be more independent, maybe more self-starting, maybe more focused on an element of risk. What's going on for you right now? So the what's going on for you right now is the sentence we sort of add to the bottom there. You can say whatever you want. The reason we go in with curiosity and no judgment is because we don't know. So you can't be like, Jessica, you are taking more risk. You are being more independent. Well, I don't know that, right? She's perceiving a need to be. Doesn't mean she is showing up that way. I can't say, you must be stressed and hate your job. How's that feel? How does it feel to hate your job, Jessica? That would be what not to do. And when we train managers, we have to train them on this because they get this very wrong, and they perceive this as, and that change is like, oh, we're going to go around and tell people that they hate their job and they're stressed. Because I'm like, that's not what they're going to tell you. Like, you actually don't know what they're going to say. Some people might be facing a big shift and actually go, you know what? I'm aware of this. I knew this job was going to be very different. I have deliberately done this type of development for myself. They could come in and actually be quite calm and considered about it. So we wouldn't want to go in with all of our judgment that they're unhappy. So this guide really helps us say the right thing and ask the right questions. So I always say, make sure you start it with, I can see that you're perceiving a need to be, and then go for here. More flexible in this instance, this lower D. Less formal in dealing with people and your work. So I wouldn't just say all of them. I would pick a few and I would say, tell me a little bit more about that. Or what's going on for you in your current environment? Yes, Keith.
A question, if I may. I have a massive difference between my two results. And I just wanted to know if that's common or am I an outlier again?
We don't say common because we can't predict your self and self-concept.
No, is it common in your reports to have a large diversity between the two reports?
Yes.
It is
like
common.
yes, that there is a change. Yes,
Yeah.
The significance of that change is dependent. So
Yeah,
everyone will, their results won't look identical. It'd be very hard to be identical. We will see some shift. Then it depends on how much of a shift on 1 factor, 2 factors, 3 factors, 4 factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
then we debrief it.
My report is radically different. I didn't even look at it before in that way years ago when we did it.
And that's a good point to make. So your self-concept is only relevant, we say, for 90 days.
Okay. Well, we did this about 10 years ago, didn't we? So.
Yeah. Well, 2019 maybe, 2020. So I couldn't now come to you and be like, Keith, let's unpack this because it was relevant when you took it. And so the cool thing is for those of you who are going to profile your newer members or maybe members who are joining, this self-concept stuff does expire is the best way to describe it. It does expire. We wouldn't look at it if it's a year old or 2 years old. I couldn't go in and be like, oh, you've got a self-concept change. But it is relevant for new people. So, and hence why when you start profiling, let's say you profile members who haven't done it before or new people joining, I would love for you to look at that self-concept shift because I think this is like, again, if I've got new members joining and I was going to debrief them, I'd be like, and there was a big change in self and self-concept, that is like a gold mine for you to investigate and have a great conversation with them about it.
So if I just play back what I think I've just heard you say to us, the value of the self-concept is limited by time of about 3 months. So what is your recommendation for how we continually find out what the current view of somebody's self-concept is?
Great question, which we get asked a lot by our clients. There is no current functionality to reassess self-concept. So you can't reassess it at the moment other than taking the whole PI again, which we don't recommend.
So so really the crux of my question is what is the value of understanding the self-concept for 90 days?
Because if I know that let's say you are in your current big self-concept shift that you're facing and you've done your PI and I'm sitting across from you and my job is now to coach and mentor you. If I know that you're facing a systemic shift in who you are and who you're trying to be, this is perfect coaching. So it's an opportunity for me to look at your role with you. It's an opportunity for me to look at how you're being managed by your board or by your peer group. It's like, why is there this big shift in your perception of yourself and that you need to be systemic, like quite different? So that 90-day window for you as a coach is wonderful. Like it's a coaching gold mine for you to have great conversations with that individual if you feel confident to do so. But this just gives you that door. It's an opening to go and have a great conversation with that person.
Yeah, okay. I think you've explained it to me, but and maybe debrief me privately on that.
Yes, we can certainly talk about it.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this self? Oh, I have one more comment. Sometimes there's self-concept, and this I only see when I'm working inside a whole organization. Self-concepts can look like the profile of their boss. So sit with that for a minute.
Yeah.
Their self-concept looks like their boss, or sometimes the CEO. And I've done a few pieces of work with clients where I've profiled lots of people, and across the whole organization, you start to see the self-concept looking like the CEO's pattern. And so there's lots of room for conversation there around what's causing this. So I'm not saying that you should sit with people and say, oh, does this profile look like your boss? But it's something for you to think about, because self-concept can be about their job. It can be about how they're being managed. It can be what they're navigating at work. It could be to do with what they're doing with a client. Like self-concept, there's actually no description of where it's coming from. That's why you have to have the conversation with the person about what's coming up for them. Where is it coming from, and ask them.
Do you tend to find more difference between self and self-concept when self is collaborative and flexible?
No, not necessarily. No. Because I see it everywhere. We see highly dominant people being like, I'm turning that off.
Okay.
They've told me I can't drive anymore, and I'm like individual contributors in a role where they're like, I've been told I'm not allowed to drive on this project, or so self-concept shift does show up really anywhere.
Yeah.
So again, can I just clarify something? Are we really looking at a Johari window exercise here?
Kind of, yes.
Yeah, it just seems to me to be the same thing.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Okay, good. Because that's a valuable tool in my previous experience, I think.
Yeah. And we sometimes run Johari window when we do our leadership programs, and then we'll come back to their PI and we explain to them Johari window and their PI. And
But I don't think it's a common tool that's used in business, but you're using it, so that's interesting. I don't know anyone that even knows what it is in my networks.
Oh, there you go. No, we have it in.
I've used it with my groups, Keith.
Oh, God, well done. You ran that yourself?
Yeah, quite a number of years ago. It was really it was good. Really worked.
It's the core of how we work in them. Absolute core.
Is it?
It's the Johari window, yeah.
Wow.
Good. I shall dust it off.
You're amongst your peers here, Keith. There are similar practices.
What I will do is get some window cleaner and make sure I can see through it.
Now in the software, when you have a look, it will look a little bit different to the reports that I've previously given to you in your meetings, where we had the 3 graphs on a page, and I always say, all right, everyone, 3 graphs on a page. There's now 2 graphs on a page. The synthesis is not there. Anyway, the system, they just redesigned things. Typical American company doing a new user interface. One of the things that is quite good is the self-concept report that looks like what's on the right there, and they just overlay both the graphs. They're self with the circles and the self-concept with the squares. So it's a little bit easier to visually see where the shifts are. And again, it'll make more sense when you go into the tool and start looking at your members. And I can sit with all of you separately and go through the software in a bit more detail. But it is there.
As well?
The E is there on both your graphs, which
it didn't used to be.
It didn't used to be. Spot on, Keith. Look, you just know so much about PI. That is correct. It only was on the synthesis, and now it is on self and self-concept. All right. So some basic fundamentals. Everyone has given us access except for you, Andrew, and that's because I don't have we don't have you in yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go over that. The reason we get you to give us access is so I can help you move your data across and help you with all the things that you need doing. I want to show you how to send out a behavioral assessment. It's very easy to do in the new software. So if you were logged in, you basically are going to press 3 buttons, and it's that simple. So if we were in the software and we're on our homepage, we want to go up to Inspire. So there's 5 modules of PI, but the one you're going to spend most of your time in is in the Inspire module, because that's where everyone's results are. When you're here, it's as simple as clicking on this button that says Send Assessment. Oh, actually not that one. Employees. Yeah, so we go Inspire, Employees, and then there's this Copy Assessment link. And the reason why we recommend you use this link is because you can put that link in an email. So you can email people from the tool to do their PI, but I do find sometimes, depending on their servers, it can get blocked. So I always want to explain to people why I'm asking them to do it. Like, hey, ahead of our meeting, looking forward to seeing you. I'd love for you to complete this quick 5-minute assessment. I'll bring your results with me. Love to go through them with you. You can't pass or fail. Here's the link. That one link and that email template, you can just save and use over and over and over again. So it just makes it nice and easy for you. I will send you that email template so you can see my language, which is you can't pass or fail. I'll go through your results with you. But it's super easy. If you did want to email them through the tool, you just click Send Assessments and put their email and name in. So you can do it that way. Either way, it doesn't really matter. When I come and see your groups, I do that email and it says click here and it goes to everyone, and everyone uses the same link. Their results will then come into the tool here, and you'll start to see everyone in the employee directory. I want to show you now, for those of you who have multiple groups, you may want to create, we refer to them as teams, and I'm just going to find you the instructions. So if you have multiple groups, what you want to do, and again, we will send these instructions to you, but you can go to Group Analytics, which is up here in the top right. So for some of you who've got many groups, you're probably going to want to put all your members into in your CE groups, your key groups, whatever they are. And so you can basically create a new group. And I won't do this, Guy, because I don't want to play around with your system. You click on that and then you just add the members' names. So that's a way to keep it nice and neat for all of you. Let me...
Do you drag it across from another database, or do you have to physically enter it?
So with all of your current members' data, it's sitting in our PI account. We're doing a data move process with PI in the US to get your data from me into your accounts. We've hit all these hiccups because we're in the old system and you're in the new system. So they have to go from our system to my new business account, which is a new upgraded account, and then into your account. So we're doing like this migration thing. So you're not all fully migrated. Some of you have all your data now, some of you don't. So we will keep you. Yes.
Alicia, how do you find that groups area?
Oh, okay. So if you click on this top right-hand corner, there's like a little graph with dots above it. And that's what we call the group analytics. So if you wanted to add people, you're going to do team analytics, but there's a tab called groups up the top. And then you go create new group, which is a button on the right-hand side with a little plus sign. And from there, you can add the name, and then you can add everyone's names. And if their results are there, which you don't have, you only have 2 people's results, you can add them in there.
Okay.
And you'll need that for when we do the design, which is the team wheel. Anyway, we'll get there when we do our next session.
Okay.
All right. I have one more slide, I think.
Sorry, Alicia, just a question. The results, do the results go automatically to the person, or is that something that we then need to send? Or
That is a great question, which I am in the process of trying to find out, because in our old account, which is what we're in, there's a setting that says auto send or don't auto send. And so we auto send on, so that as soon as you do it, you get it, because we think that's how it should be. I don't want to hold your data hostage. But I'm not sure, because it's actually not the default. So I have a question logged with PI, and I will find out for you.
I'm just thinking of Guy's question about, giving too much value too quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just a question about how we might control the pace at which we.
I agree.
Yeah. So let me find that one out for you. And I know when we do candidates, for example, if you're using it in recruitment, it definitely doesn't auto send, because that is definitely not how the process works. We just collect it. So let me find, I'm assuming the default is it doesn't auto send, because that's the default in our current system. I have to tick it on to send. So I just need to find out also how to edit it. So it's a bit of we're still learning, full transparency. This new system upgrade is new for us too. But they're not letting us sign up people on the current legacy system. So. All right, my semi-last slide is just around data in general, because we're talking about data. So obviously I house and own your PI data at the moment in terms of your members' data. You will then now own your members' data in your account. So we always say to people, you're responsible for it. So please only share it with the individual unless you have explicit permission. And then if for whatever reason, at any point in time, you go, I'm not a Vistage chair anymore, your account will actually get anonymized. So the data then just disappears, to be honest. Well, it doesn't disappear, but it gets anonymized from a global perspective. That's what happens with our clients as well. So they're pretty high on that data security component, but just keep that in mind in terms of who you share those results with and who you sit with. All right, so we have more coming. This is a bit of a rough framework. I'm actually going to change the topics around, but as I've mentioned to all of you, today is like big fundamental PI science training. And then moving on from here, I'm going to run very short hour, maybe an hour and a half, and we'll just pick a very niche topic and we'll go deep on that topic, like how to use it in recruiting new members, which we talked about. I'm actually thinking that'll be the first one I do, not the second. I'm going to talk to you about profiling jobs, because that might be something that comes up. How to use it in coaching. I want to go through team dynamics with you. There's heaps to go through with that. So I've got lots of ideas of what I would like to cover off with you over the coming months. I'll probably keep them on a Friday, because I feel like all of you, from a schedule perspective, Fridays, you're less likely to have your membership groups, like Fridays or Mondays. I don't know if anybody has an overly high preference on that.
Monday's preferable for me, but
Mondays.
Mondays for me too, actually. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I probably prefer Mondays now. I have a meeting on 8:30 till 10 on a Friday. So, but I don't mind it being I'd prefer it after 10 if it wasn't a Friday.
Cool. That's good to know. Yeah, because what I'll do is I'll probably run 2 every month that are the repeat. And so it sounds like I'll do 1 Friday, 1 Monday, just so I'm like covering bases. And then you can just pick which ones you want to come to. Like, it's all optional anyway. So I think that's my last slide. The end. 3 minutes to spare.
Wow.
Brilliant. Well done.
Good back timing.
That's great.
Great. Does anyone have any final questions that you didn't get to ask through all of that you were like, Alicia, you didn't cover this and I was expecting you to, and now I have all these questions?
I'm really excited to get this out to some of my prospects that I'm working with at the moment already. So the sooner I can have that template, better.
Right.
That's the only thing I would ask for. And then I can start populating it and having a closer look.
Amazing.
And presumably I'll just wait for the rest to come in for my group that you've got. And then before I?
I think it's only 2 when we looked it up, but
Oh, okay. In
I'll
which
go
case,
back.
I'll get the other ones to fill it out.
Yeah, great. Great, awesome. I will follow up with you. I'll send you an email template and I'll go through your instructions with you.
Great, thank you.
Alicia, in the one-to-one, since you present to the group, this job design has come up a couple of times, and I'm just wondering, until we get the training to be able to support that conversation, not wanting to overwhelm you, but is that something we can still keep directing members to reach out, have a chat with you and your team to help them with tricky jobs or jobs they've been struggling to hire into or hold people to improve their, getting value for them to make better hiring decisions?
Yes, I would say in the meantime, send them to me in terms of that. What I'm envisioning long term, full transparency, is that if they've got a singular role that they're like, oh, I'm struggling with, that you could sit with them and profile it with them and go through it. Because I think there's like a coaching element there around, well, what do you really want? And challenge them around that. And then if they go, oh, wow, this is great, we need to get that, like they can't not use it, so to speak, then they need to talk to us about how they would use it or could use it.
Okay.
But I think that, like I've said to many of you, I think there's enormous value sometimes in just profiling the role. There's that clarity of design. It's then up to them to go, well, what do we want to do moving forward?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, send them my way in the meantime. We can set up jobs quite quickly and easily.
Thank you. It's certainly proving to be an area of interest.
Yeah, right person, right job
Mm.
is such a, I would say it's like the crux of most businesses, right? Like if we can get that right, then we're halfway there.
Just to be honest, I might have missed the memo or not been listening properly at the right time, but the whole idea behind this and what we can do, how much we can use this with our members or prospects, etc. Where the limits are, at what point do you actually get some revenue from it, etc. Probably not discussion for now because need to get moving, but I just need to get, and I don't need it now to know that now anyway, but just to get some clarity.
Yeah, look, I've got a 1 slide on it. So basically you can profile all your members, you can profile all your prospects and all the people that you want to talk to. That is all within your scope, within your training. You can do that as much as you like. You can technically, under the agreement with PI, profile, I think, up to 5 members within one organization for free.
Okay.
I would do that with caution though, but you can profile up to 5 members in one business. You can use it to profile jobs. You have all the rights, like, to design the role. Where it stops is you can't profile candidates because you can't house candidate data. And sort of if they then go, oh, I want to profile many, many more people in my business, or I want to go, then they need to come to us. And at that point, we talk to them to see if they are a good fit for us and using PI, because not everyone qualifies for it, actually. It's sometimes not the right tool for them.
Right. Yeah.
Can I clarify what you just said? What is your definition of candidate?
Yeah.
Anyone who's not an employee
Of what?
Their organization.
Of
the member organization.
Of your member business. So we can profile member prospects.
Correct.
But not, so we're going to hold their info, but not member company recruitment prospects.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, I know it's a bit confusing because you're kind of using it to recruit for yourself, but there's your members recruitment you cannot do, but you can use it for your own prospect development.
So would it be useful for all of us if we knew, I've got a rough idea, but would it be useful if we knew how many of our existing members have or are using your services?
Oh yeah, I can talk to all of you about that separately. Absolutely. Yeah.
Alicia, I have to depart. 11 out of 10 presentation today, stunning materials. I'm not surprised. It's up there with your exquisitely good work. Thank you so much for including me.
Thank you, Tony. I
Well
appreciate
said, Tony.
Well said, Tony.
Yeah, ditto. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Great.
Cheers, everyone.
See you,
Cheers,
Tony.
everyone.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
Keith.
nice to meet you, Penelope. I didn't even know you existed until
Yeah.
you're there. I've done a bit of stalking while we were online. So who's that Penelope lady? Oh, she's a chair. Right,
Thank
yeah.
you, Guy. Lovely to meet you too. Yes, I'm a reasonably new recruit.
Oh, great. And in Adelaide, I see.
In Adelaide, yeah.
She's raised the profile and the intellect of the Adelaide Chair Committee.
Oh, that wasn't hard, though, Keith, was it?
Okay. Thanks,
Everyone. Thanks,
Well,
Mine Host.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Wonderful to see you
Alexa.
all. Talk to you all
Bye.
separately.
Bye.
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 See you, everyone.